you can develop albinoism. You can, I'm sure. I'm sure, yeah. But no, hang on. So anyway, the...
This is TalkSport. We are the two mics, and I'm delighted to say that as the first day of the Masters comes to a close with the world number 52 leading the charge, it's time to say very good morning to Mr. Mike, a Porky, a Parry. Very good morning to Mr. Parry.
And a good morning to you, Mike. Now, who do you think are the most bemused footballers in the world at the moment?
The most bemused footballers in the world?
Yes.
I don't know, really. Who would that be?
They play for a club that's not universally known called Melbourne City.
Melbourne City?
Melbourne City.
In Melbourne, Australia?
Yeah, Melbourne, Australia. Is that in New South Wales, Melbourne? Is it another one?
No, Melbourne's down where they have the Grand Prix.
Yeah, that's right.
And where they play the tennis.
Yeah, that's right.
So it's down the sort of southwest coast.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
New South Wales is Sydney.
Sydney, which is more sort of east, isn't it?
And Bondi.
That's right.
But anyway, in Melbourne City, the players will take to the training field tomorrow.
Yeah.
And, in the distance, they will see...
The athletic figure of?
The trotting towards them, Roy Hodgson. No, I'm not joking. It will be Roy Hodgson. I'm a professor of football. And Mr. Hodgson is joining them in a consultancy basis.
What is that all about?
In a consultancy basis. And Melbourne City, everybody should know, is an affiliate of Manchester City.
Right.
Brian Marwood, apparently,
that's the guy,
who is a big cheese at Manchester City, has used as an enormous influence to get probably the most failed international manager of recent years of any modern football nation.
Very highly esteemed.
Yeah, some sort of consultancy job at Melbourne City. So there I am, a young 23-year-old footballer at Melbourne City, thinking, who's this new consultant going to be? Is it going to be sort of, a man who's just finished playing?
He's won everything there is to win. He's won everything there is to win.
A new thinker in the game.
Yeah. Champions Leagues.
And suddenly, over the horizon, trots Roy Hodgson with his grey hair, with his bandy ageing legs.
And his massive watch.
His massive watch, and I don't mean that with any disrespect, because he is an old man now.
How did you describe his bandy ageing legs again?
Bandy ageing legs. That's right, yeah.
No disrespect.
No disrespect whatsoever. And all of a sudden, a group of young footballers will just be completely bemused as to why this bloke has joined them. They then decide to look up his record. What will they find?
Well, they will find that he took England to the Euros, the most recent year of 2016.
Indeed.
Got knocked out by Iceland.
By Iceland. That gigantic nation, Iceland.
That's right.
Which is about the size of sort of, one little town in Australia.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They'll also find that he took the English team to the Brazil World Cup.
Yes.
But unfortunately got knocked out of that after 2 games.
I think it was before West Germany even played their second game.
That's right, it was.
That's right.
And so not even a chance of going through to the knockout stages of that.
Yeah.
And in fact, the previous Euros that he handled actually didn't do that badly. He managed to get England onto, I think, the quarterfinals.
Ukraine.
Yeah.
So you would not blame said 23-year-old Melbourne City player if he actually said to Roy Hodgson as a greeting...
What are you doing, mate?
No. Don't play the raw prawn with me, Roy.
Well, let's not forget the other. That's very good. The other great accomplishment of his was that he managed to take Fulham all the way to the height of the final of the Europa League and then lose it.
Well, I mean, look, you're giving me credit for getting there in the first place.
Well, not really. He hasn't won anything.
No, that's
what
I mean.
He's won nothing.
I know.
Sod all.
No, I know.
Sorry.
I know he's never won anything.
He's not won anything.
But if you ask him, how does he see his role in the world of football, he'll say, I'm a footballing man.
Yes.
And what he meant by that was, for years in this country, there was some cynicism about whether or not he was qualified to be the England manager.
Yes.
And he noted this cynicism in press conferences and always replied by saying, I'm a footballing man. What he meant was, don't you understand, I'm so experienced, I'm a professor of football.
You have no right to speak to me in that tone.
No, I'm a deep thinker. I know everything about the game. I'm an analyst. I read all these fruitcake type philosophers' books.
Yeah.
That guy, was it Jung? Was he the German guy?
Oh, the philosopher?
Yeah, was it,
Carl Jung?
Yeah. J-U-N-G.
Yeah, that's the guy.
Yeah, last read by John Lennon, by the way, for inspiration. So they've got something in common there.
Right.
And all these other philosophers. Who are they? Like Nietzsche. Is he a philosopher?
You mean Nietzsche?
Yeah, Nietzsche. Yeah, I read a bit about
Hobbes,
Nietzsche.
you might want to bring in there.
But he now feels qualified to fly halfway around the world and will be trotting out at the Melbourne City training ground tomorrow morning, much to the joy, I'm sure, of the Melbourne City squad. It's ridiculous.
And indeed, the interim head coach is a guy by the name of Michael Valkanis.
Yeah.
all right, who's not going to be too happy about it.
I wouldn't have thought so.
But apparently he's working with the staff. This is what people say.
Yeah.
More or less talking a lot of football between us. We are able to ask him whatever we require. He's a man with a wealth of experience that can help.
Yeah.
Well, how can he help? I mean, the last thing he said of any note to any press conference was, I believe, after the Iceland game, when he said, I don't know what I'm doing here.
I don't know what I'm doing
when he
here.
refused to take the blame for England going out of the Euros, refused to take any responsibility for the massive amount of money that he'd removed from the FA for the previous, 4 or 5 years.
That's right, yeah.
And literally thought that it was,
he was the highest
impertinent of any journalist to say, what on earth have you been doing?
Exactly. He was the highest paid coach in the world. He took £14 million out of the FA to mass humiliate us. And when he said at that last press conference, I don't know what I'm doing here, maybe somebody should have pointed out, actually, Roy, the players often said they don't know what you're doing there, and they were talking about the England dressing room.
Exactly right.
Because your ability to inspire international footballers is zero. Maybe if he says, look, ask me any question, maybe the first Melbourne City player will say, Roy, how would you advise we beat a nation that's 132nd in the world, like Iceland?
Yes.
What?
Yeah. How would you advise us?
Yeah. How would you?
Well, here's a bit of a clue. I've worked out what he's doing there, actually, because here's another quote from Mr. Volkanis, who says that players have already had a good chat to him as well in the canteen area.
Oh, the canteen area.
So maybe he's giving them advice on what sort of tea they should drink.
No, maybe he was finding the raw prawn. In the canteen.
He's in the canteen. Maybe he's giving them advice on what sort of food they should be eating. What kind of things they should be imbibing. What I talk about jobs for the boys. This guy's 69 years of age, right?
It's ridiculous.
He should not be working in a new job, halfway around the other side of the world.
I mean, he's got his 14 million quid he managed to squeeze out of the gullible FA.
Yeah.
I mean, the only reason he ever became England manager was because David Bernstein, who was the chairman, decided that, the patrician club, which is what the hierarchy of the FA should be. Himself, Bernstein, and he wanted somebody in his own image. And they were like two brothers. They were like Dumb and Dumber, really, walking around as the guys running the FA, and neither had a clue what the other was supposed to be doing.
And sadly, he doesn't look much better with Gareth Southgate at the helm either.
Well, I'm not getting into that.
I will say that now.
He is the current coach, and he has my full support.
Does he?
But I never wanted Roy Hodgson to take the job. No. I always thought he was a
plank.
What's the word I'm looking for? Not a fraud, because a fraud is a man who deliberately goes out to deceive people.
He's a plank.
I thought he was a deluder. I thought he was deluded, self-deluded.
He is self-deluded. He's deluded himself into believing that he is somehow, in your words, in his words, a football man.
That's right.
Now, you're getting some abuse here, by the way.
Yeah.
Ben, who's a Man United fan, says, Melbourne is in Victoria. He says, Porky, I thought you were better than that.
Well, thank you very much. I asked, it's not in New South Wales, is it? Tell me which state it's in. You've just told me Victoria. I'm very grateful to you.
That's
thank
fine.
you.
How about this one from Mark, who says, I know Melbourne City, but then I follow football. I thought you worked for a sports channel.
Yes.
Well, good for you, Mark. Very many congratulations.
So hang on. What have you been accused of?
Well, I think he's saying that we didn't know who Melbourne City were.
Well, blimey, I'm awfully sorry. Are Melbourne City in the Southern Hemisphere on a par with sort of Barcelona and Manchester United in the Northern Hemisphere? I think not.
They used to. There was a time when there was a programme director here at the Talk Sport who thought it'd be a great idea to go to Australia every week. In fact, more than once a week, and get an update on the A-League and what was going on in Australia, right?
Yes.
Nobody could give a monkey's, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely nobody cared.
Yeah.
And
Is that
so
right?
it's all very well for you to say, matey, that we should know who Melbourne City are. Of course we know who Melbourne City are, but nobody cares who they are. And nobody with any brains would want to hire Roy Hodgson to go and do a job there.
No, with no disrespect to Australia, because they are a magnificent sporting nation in many aspects of the sporting game, but it's not soccer, as we would call it in the regions. And the only thing that we ever really notice about Australian associated football in the pools coupons in the summer when there's no football in this country.
Indeed.
Yes.
Not that I do the pools, of course.
No, I don't
how about
either.
this from Dennis? He says, Roy Hodgson is retired. He's just soaking up his last days in the hot sun in Melbourne.
Yeah.
Hashtag plank.
I just don't get it. With 14 million quid in the bank, which, he managed to extract from the FA for his services over the time he was there. I mean, that must be the most overpaid job in the history of the world, frankly, for what you got in return.
Well, in terms of what you actually expect somebody to do.
Yes.
I mean, if you and I were paid that kind of money in, say, say, this business.
That's
You'd
right.
expect to be putting ratings up. You
Certainly.
wouldn't expect to be putting them down.
Certainly.
You wouldn't expect to be disappearing at the rate of knots every time there was a competition.
And humiliating the organisation you work for.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be expecting to do that. But
No.
that's what Mr. Hodgson did.
That's exactly right.
Absolutely bizarre.
Yeah.
And the other manager, by the way, that I want to give a word to today is
go on.
Mr. Materazzi of Watford.
Materazzi, okay.
Who has decided, all right, I will try 3 words of English.
Okay, well, you should be applauding him for that, shouldn't you?
No, because he should
No,
speak
but you're always saying
fluent
that people
English.
who don't speak English shouldn't be here in terms of being managerial contenders.
And that's not being Little Englander. That's because if you can't communicate with the people that you're in charge of, i.e. players in a football club, then you have no chance of making it work whatsoever.
Who's this guy?
Hey?
He's the boss of Watford, is he?
Yes.
Are you sure it's Materazzi?
Materazzi?
Are you sure?
What is it?
It's not something other than Materazzi.
What is it?
Well, I don't know. I'm just asking you. I think it might be Mazzari.
Mazzari, that's a guy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Some rhymes with-
Materazzi is more like a car.
Well, Materazzi was a different guy, wasn't he?
No.
Was Materazzi another player?
Listen, don't even worry about it, mate. Materazzi, in fact, I think used to play for Everton. He was an Italian defender.
And Materazzi was the guy that Zidane headbutted in the World Cup final.
He certainly was as well. I was
Italian,
there. I was
international,
there.
yeah.
I saw it.
Well, that's why you say Materazzi.
Yeah, well, you know what I'm talking about.
I do, yeah. But other people are going to accuse you of being ignorant.
No, I'm
And
not
I
ignorant
wouldn't
at all.
I wouldn't want them to do that.
Now, the other manager that we have to consider sometime during the show is Slaven Bilic, because he's in a very sticky position.
Bilic,
very sticky.
yes, very sticky.
Because although
indeed.
he's had the words of support from the board, certainly from Lady Brady and from either Mr. Gold or Mr. Sullivan, the situation is perilous. And other clubs who found themselves in perilous positions this season have actually sacked their manager and found themselves doing better.
Yeah, but it's too late to sack him now. They can't do it.
It's not at all.
We'll talk about that. And the Masters, of course, coming up. This is Talk Sport. We are the two mics.
And where down we go, oh, 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 where down we go, oh, 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 so where down we go, oh, 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 way down we go. Oh, you let your feet run wild.
It's Grand National Weekend, of course. You told me this week that you were going to tell me where I could go and put some bets on, so you haven't told me yet.
Well,
but I'm hoping you'll tell me before the end of the show.
It's not Saturday yet. Yeah,
No,
we've sorted Saturday,
Yeah,
okay?
no, but I need to know before Saturday.
Why?
So if
Why?
I've got time before the show,
Yeah.
I can go and do it before the show.
Okay.
I don't want to wait till I get here and then you say, oh, yeah, well, I'll tell you after the show.
All right, don't worry.
Do you know what I mean?
I'll
'Cause
direct you to the right
I'm going to be in a
place.
hurry.
Yes.
Now, how about this? Cole says Everton legend Tim Cahill plays for Melbourne City.
Well, there you go. He is a legend as well. In fact, last time...
He's a bit washed up now, though, isn't he?
No, not at all. Last time a member of my family was in Australia and driving from the airport in Melbourne to their 5-star hotel, which is what my family is.
Because your family always stay in 5-star hotels.
Yes.
How disappointing.
There were huge banners of Tim Cahill hanging from the lamppost and everything.
Really?
I mean, he's a real hero there, you know, poster boy, and does lots of advertising and all that kind of
Well,
stuff.
he'll be really pleased to see Roy Hodgson, I imagine.
Well, it'd be fantastic when Roy Hodgson turns up and Tim Cahill examines his record and asks him, where's the beef?
Where is the beef?
Where's the beef?
That's, of course, harkening back to one of the old presidential campaigns, isn't it?
It was, and it was Walter
Mondale, wasn't
that's
it?
right, yeah.
But it was a Burger King
beef?
slogan, I think.
That's right, yeah.
Who used to have this row with McDonald's. Anyway, Stephen says this, Hodgson going to Australia would be like Porky going to a new satellite TV station to advise. Hashtag bankrupt.
That's very harsh.
And Matt says...
That wasn't my fault. It was everybody else who was there, not me.
Of course. Porky calling Roy
me.
Hodgson old, Pot calling Kettle comes to mind.
Well,
I mean, not as old as Roy Hodgson.
I'm
He's
nowhere
69
near
years old.
Exactly. Crikey, he's got at least 2 decades on me, and I say at least.
Well, it's not at least 2 decades,
Yeah.
it's just a few years, but he's definitely older than you. Mikey says this, Orebro SK, the mighty Roy won the Swiss Second Division North title.
Yeah, he did, yeah.
Is that a team in Switzerland? Or maybe our friend who knows about football can tell us.
Yes.
Orebro SK.
Orebro SK, yeah.
Is that a team?
I don't know. Who knows?
And Baz says football, one of only a few industries where failure is rewarded.
Yes, that's right. Steve here says, well done, Porky. Lasted just 6 minutes before you got a John Lennon mention in. Look, it's the man with no name. We can't mention him, but if he's relevant to anything we are doing or saying, then of course I have to mention him, okay?
Yeah, all right. Paul says you can
like
watch...
the Prime Minister's the Prime Minister. We have to mention her.
You can mention Melbourne City because apparently they're on BT Sport Live in the morning in a game against Adelaide United.
Are they?
Yeah. So you can get a look at maybe Roy Hodgson standing on the touchline, giving his experience a run out.
Yes.
Giving the benefit of his incredible knowledge.
Excellent. Martin is showing tremendous faith in me. He says 100 to 1 that Porky gets more than 3 out of 10 in the Porky quiz. Current favourite is 1 to 10 at even money. Well, you're going to be surprised, actually, with the quiz tonight. You are going to be surprised, all of you. Yeah.
All of us?
Yeah, all
well,
of you,
I mean, we'll see. I haven't seen the questions yet, but when they come in, no doubt we will find out how hard they're going to be.
Indeed.
And you have said you're an expert on the Grand National. And you did win something last year, I think. I'm right in saying.
2 years ago, I won 850 quid.
Yeah.
Because my system I use is so unique that nobody can follow it. So
yeah, it's so unique that you end up putting hundreds and hundreds of pounds on. So even if you do win, you end up winning like a tenner, don't you?
No.
Yeah.
Somebody points out Matteo Magic 86.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what his real name is. I think his real name is Matteo, actually.
Matteo.
And he said, Hodgson once said, and he repeated the quote we've already given to our millions of listeners, "I don't know what I'm doing here last summer. I sometimes wonder the same with old Porky on Talk Sport."
That's a very good point.
That is very harsh.
Now, coming up, we're going to be talking about the Masters. We're going over to Augusta very, very shortly. But unheralded American Charlie Hoffman is now apparently leading it, right? He's number 52 in the world. And he's running ahead of a guy called William McGirt, and also Lee Westwood, and a bunch of English people, Sullivan, Fitzpatrick, Rose, and several others. I mean,
tell you
what do you reckon?
Quite interesting to see Lee Westwood up there. And by the way, he had a sensational back nine. He came back in 30.
Right.
Did you know that?
I did know that. Yeah.
And which is pretty damn good.
Yeah.
What about the English players who are up there?
Well, we've got the world number 31, who's Matthew Fitzpatrick.
Yes.
He's 22 from Sheffield.
Right.
Andy Sullivan, world number 58.
Yeah.
Who is not particularly well known at all, but is played his first 2 rounds of the Masters last year.
Right.
Before he missed the cut. Paul Casey, who's been around for a long time.
Yeah.
And he's another guy who had an accident. Do you remember he hurt his shoulder while snowboarding some years ago?
Did he?
And he was out of the game for a while.
Okay.
So, I mean, as well as Lee Westwood, 3 other Brits up there.
Yeah.
All of whom could easily win.
Lee Westwood will not win it because Lee Westwood...
He's got a nickname or a name for not winning majors, right?
Is that right?
Well, he's never won one, has he?
No, of course he's never won one. What I'm saying is the reason he doesn't is he can never take it over the line. He just bottles it he's been in playoffs.
Well, last year he had another chance at the Masters.
That's right. Of course he did, yeah. But just like Colin Montgomery, never quite got there because when it came to the playoff, when it came to the last day, when it came to the last 9 holes, when it came to the last 4 or 5 holes, the yips just suddenly struck his game and he just couldn't do it.
It's not so much the yips as it is just the tension, I think.
Well, that's what I mean. The same thing, yeah.
And he just can't seem to push it past the final round.
Yeah, exactly. Do you put any store in the first round of a major?
What?
Do you put any store in the first round of a major?
Always, yeah, you have to.
Well, I don't.
Because you can't have a terrible round in the first round of the Masters and come back and win it.
Well, I hope that's the case this year because Rory McIlroy went in at, what was it...
And McIlroy, I think, is 1 over.
1 over, yeah.
So he's all right. I mean, because the leader is currently at 7 under.
Yeah.
But everybody else is then back at 3 under, 2 under.
Yes.
So if you're 1 over, you're only really 2 or 3 shots back from the pack.
Yes, that's right. But I mean, what I'm saying is that's not a great first round, but you can still emerge from that.
No, but it was quite difficult conditions today. I don't know if you were listening to Barb Bubka
yes, I was,
throughout the course of the day. There was a bit of wind blowing. And whenever the wind blows at Augusta, you can't score very well.
Yes, that's right.
So for Hoffman to get 7 under is incredible, really.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
But the point I was going to make is, until Tiger Woods came along, nobody really took a great deal of store on the first day's scores because quite often, and you've just pointed out 3 Englishmen who have made an impression on the Masters already, but none of the 3 will win it.
Well, you can't say that. You don't know.
Yeah, I think you can.
I mean, you wouldn't have said Danny Willett was going to win it last year.
Well, no, you wouldn't. Of course,
but he came from nowhere.
He certainly did.
Justin Rose has got a pretty good chance.
I think Justin Rose has got a great chance, and I said that last night to Bob Gubka, and Bob actually agreed with me enormously. But what I'm saying is,
he's at 1 under.
Yeah, he's at 1 under. That's right. Yeah. Which I think is a fantastic position to be in. That, to me, is like being, just on the shoulder of the leading pack of horses as you're coming round the first bend in the Derby or something like that.
I would say he's actually in the leading pack of horses. There's only 3 players ahead of him. 4
but he's on the shoulder of them. If you see what I mean, he's not actually out front, which is a great place to be, in my view.
Okay.
So I think it's going to be a thrilling competition. But Lee Westwood sadly won't win it again. But don't feel sorry for Lee Westwood. He's made about 35 or 40 million quid.
I don't feel sorry for
out
him.
of never becoming an award-winning golfer, or a major-winning golfer, I should say. Okay?
All
So don't worry about that,
Okay.
right? Yeah.
Freddie, talking about the Grand National and picking up on your betting pattern, says, I make it 15 horses whose jockeys will be wearing varying levels of blue.
Good.
How much will Planky Parry be shelling out to cover all of these?
In that case, it will probably be £300.
What?
It'll probably be £300 on my system.
£300?
Yes, yeah.
So you will actually put down 300 quid
Well,
on 15 horses?
yes, I'll put down...
out of 40?
Yes, that's right, yes. I will have £10 each way on every horse that runs that's got blue silk.
Right.
Whose jockey's got blue silks.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money, isn't it?
No, because I'll get it back.
Why don't you just bet on every single horse in the race?
No, well, that'd be ridiculous, because then you wouldn't have any chance of winning.
Yeah, but you might not get anything back out of this either.
I will, definitely.
Think?
Yeah. I combine that quite unique method of picking horses with the win possibility factor in the Grand National, okay? And out of 40 horses, it's the biggest lottery in the world. And that's why, you know, unlike the Derby, you don't get some guy winning sort of 5 Grand Nationals, you see what I mean? Because the field is always so diverse, and the obstacles that you have to get over to get to the finishing line so enormous that consistency isn't really there. Right. There's an awful lot of luck involved.
Yes, okay.
Yeah.
Anthony says this, one thing Hodgson does well is speak foreign languages, though. He speaks
he does,
Finnish
actually.
and German, but Steve McLaren speaks better Dutch. Yeah, well, he's going to Australia.
Yeah.
What's the point of speaking a foreign language if you go to Australia?
No.
They speak English there.
Look, he's a cultured man. He reads all the books on the philosophers.
Yeah.
He speaks 4 or 5 different languages. He often professes to attend the ballet and that kind of stuff. Doesn't make him a great football coach. It just makes him patrician.
And he is
and that's
patrician.
why he was made.
He's also a very pompous guy.
The England manager. He's very pompous.
I have no time
agree.
for him.
I agree. He's very pompous.
He's a failure. He's pompous.
Yeah.
He's everything that's wrong
Yeah.
with what is English football, as far as I'm concerned.
And I think when
he's the poster boy for the non-entities.
When you get very gifted footballers, often the first question of their manager is, show us your medals, right, as a footballer.
Yeah.
And a lot of managers can't. I mean, Jose Mourinho can't, Sir Alex Ferguson couldn't. But once they establish themselves as award-winning coaches, then they have the respect of their players.
That's right.
When has Roy Hodgson ever been able to acquire the respect of a group of players?
He hasn't. That's the problem.
I think you're right.
Absolutely. Coming up, we're going over to Augusta. We've also got, of course, the Porky Quiz a little bit later on the Grand National. This is Talk Sport.
Yep.
Talk Sport, we are the 2 mics, loads more coming up, of
Yep.
course. We will be filming the Porky Quiz a little bit later on.
We certainly
so
will.
Look out for it on Facebook Live.
Yeah.
Wrong Star says, I'm off to stack wads of cash on Westwood. Cheers, Porky.
Yeah.
Hashtag Porky
Yeah.
Jinx, because you said he won't win the Masters.
He won't win the Masters.
Which in Porky reverse sections
Yes.
may mean that he actually
Well,
will.
that's all a myth, of course. Some of my
Well, not
predictions
really.
are absolutely spot on.
Well, very few of them are, to be fair.
Well, nobody gets them all spot on, but quite a few of mine are.
I
so
mean, sometimes you mention someone and a couple of days later they drop dead. I mean, that's happened in the past, hasn't it?
It has happened in the past, but I can't be made responsible for that. You know, I don't actually have the power of life and death over people.
Is that right?
Although many would say that, my influence on other people's lives is enormous.
Now, how about this from Paul? I like this. He said, how funny would it be if the whole Melbourne crowd stood up and shouted, "Who are you?" to Roy Hodgson? That'd be brilliant. We should try and organise that, actually.
Yeah, we
Can
should.
you imagine?
Yeah,
what
we
are you
should,
doing
yeah.
standing down there? Here's one from...
What about, what are you doing here? Why?
Yeah. We don't know what you're doing, or something like that.
Roy, what are you doing here?
Yeah. A Genuine Junk says this. Porky's got O-levels in double Dutch.
No, I haven't, actually.
And Mikey says, is that the, I can't use the word, the worst system ever for horse race betting?
Well, you say that, but I mean, there is no sure way of getting a winner on a horse race. Even if the favourite is stacked odds on favourite, something can always go wrong. And on the basis of the fact that the Grand National is the most popular race in the world because of its complexity and its enormous, and tiring journey that a horse has to make to get to the finishing post.
Tiring journey.
Well, it's very tiring.
Of course it's tiring.
Yeah, and I have to say that anything could go wrong, and that's why it's such a lottery that nobody can possibly predict the winner of the Grand National. It's impossible.
And that's why I don't want to ask you any questions about it, because I don't know which questions are going to figure in the
absolutely,
quiz,
absolutely.
Here's one from Lee. He says, let's not forget that Roy took Fulham to the final of the Europa League.
Yeah,
we just said that.
Yeah.
He says, I'm sure he had the respect of that squad. Just ask Danny Murphy.
Yeah.
Well, Danny Murphy has previously said that he has a lot of respect and a lot of time for Roy Hodgson.
He has indeed.
But he alone is the one person I've ever heard saying that.
Yes.
And I mean, of course, Danny Murphy is entitled to his opinion, and his opinion may be more valid as a player who worked for Roy Hodgson, but as a punter who is supposedly waiting for the pearls of wisdom coming from Roy Hodgson's mouth, and as somebody who paid his wages because he took the money out of the FA, I'm not satisfied.
Well, Danny, who is a great guy, great pundit, and I hasten to suggest a friend of mine.
He's a friend of yours,
yes, I think he's going to move eventually towards the coaching side of football and all that. And I think when he speaks about Roy Hodgson, I think he does actually, think about the coaching qualities and qualifications that the man has, because that's behind the scenes that we don't see. But Danny's a professional footballer who's seen
we've
that.
also spoken to other professional footballers who have worked with Hodgson who thought he was useless.
We have spoken to footballers who said that they thought his coaching methods were outdated, but I suppose that's an individual opinion, isn't it?
Indeed.
But I think Danny was making his assessment on that. Whatever, the views on Roy Hodgson will be diverse, but at the end of the day, you look at his record, he won nothing.
Mark says this, did you know that Inter Milan were runners-up in the UEFA Cup under Roy Hodgson?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, but so what? The word there is runners-up.
Yes.
He didn't win anything.
Fulham were runners-up.
He has not won anything.
Yeah.
How about this from Stephen? He says, did Porky pick Dustin Johnson earlier in the week? I put £50 on him, and do I lose my dough?
No, you don't. You get your money back.
Because he didn't start the tournament, you get your money back.
You do get your money back, and I didn't pick just Dustin Johnson. I picked Rory McIlroy.
It was Mark Donaldson who said that the better bet, rather than to bet Dustin Johnson to win, was to have him leading in the after day one.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, which
didn't
of course
work out too well.
No, it didn't work out too well, and of course will not now happen. Okay. Now you said you wanted to get on to the subject of West Ham's manager.
No, you did.
Yes.
Well, if you wish to.
What do you think's going to happen?
Well, I've said I don't think that they can sack him at this late stage of the game. They've basically got 7 or 8 games left to play in the Premier League, which means effectively, 6 or 7 weeks of football.
They've got the worst record.
There is no point at this time to sack your manager, is there?
They've got the worst record in the Premier League that any club has managed to accumulate this season. 5 consecutive losses. So that's 15 points.
What you mean?
Literally
just
do you
mean
burned.
In 2017, or do you mean the whole season?
No, the whole season.
Really?
5 consecutive losses.
Blimey.
Yeah, and you have to preceded by a draw, by the way. So they haven't won in 6. By the way, neither have Middlesbrough, but Middlesbrough only lost 4 in those 6.
Right.
And funny enough, so have Sunderland, who also have lost 5 out of the last 6.
Yeah.
But West Ham's are consecutive, if you see what I mean.
So they're one after the other.
Yeah, one after the other. Yeah, 5 consecutive defeats. Now that can't go on. Now my
but no matter, you can lose the next 5, and they still won't sack him. They can't sack him at this time of the season.
Why do you say that?
Because it's ridiculous. You would not. Why would you do it? You're not going to be able to hire anybody else.
Because you have the instincts of survival in the Premier League in the first season that you're in your new stadium, and you know that the ambition at West Ham was not that they were going to plummet down towards relegation with their new stadium. It was that they were going to go like a booster rocket into the top 6 positions in the Premier League with their new stadium.
Well, that's not going to happen.
52,000 fans.
But I mean, look, put that to one side, right? Assume for a moment that even the likes of Karen Brady, Dame Brady, if you like, and the Gold and Sullivan guys have come to the conclusion that that's not going to happen. So all they want is to survive and to stay in the Premier League.
I think there
is no point in them sacking him now, is there?
I don't agree with you. I think today is an absolutely crucial watershed point in the season of West Ham United, and I think they've got to make the most vital decision that's ever been made for the club.
Yeah.
And I think they...
Do you think they should fire him before the Swansea game?
Yes, I do.
What?
I do, honest to God.
What, between now and sort of 3 o'clock on Saturday?
Yes, I do.
Are you joking?
No, I'm not joking.
I think you've finally gone mad.
No, I haven't gone mad. I think that the smack of firm management has got to be applied here. Remember, West Ham have been through this nightmare before. By sticking with Avram Grant, they actually sleepwalked their way into relegation just by simply not doing anything. Who was the famous president who said, "Evil only prospers where good men do nothing"?
Was it not? Not. I don't think it was a president. I
Franklin
think
D. Roosevelt.
No, well, he may have said it as well,
Yes.
but I don't think he initiated it.
Okay, well, he said it.
Yeah.
He said it, definitely.
All right. I should check on who was the original author of that.
Yeah. Also, speak quietly but carry a big stick.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that might have been Franklin D. Roosevelt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It wasn't actually. It was Harry Truman.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah, but I'm saying is that the quote I've just given you, the famous quote I've just given you, evil only happens where good men do nothing.
Yeah.
Can be applied to the situation at West Ham. I'm not saying that anybody's evil, but what I'm saying is no, there are no evil people at West Ham.
He is from Bulgaria, isn't he? Croatia.
Croatia.
Yeah.
Well, that doesn't make him evil. Croatian people are not necessarily evil. Some of them are.
Not necessarily.
Some of them have been in the past, haven't they?
Well,
As
no,
you
not
know
really.
from personal
Well,
experience.
there were some pretty terrible things in the Bosnian War. Yeah,
well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah,
well, I'm not
but that
suggesting
does not include Mr. Slaven Bilic. I can assure you.
Exactly.
So what I'm saying is, I'm not suggesting evilness is about in the West Ham situation. What I'm saying is that sloth and failure is about at West Ham United in terms of the playing pool, which includes the coaches and the good men.
It was Edmund Burke who came out with that first.
Edmund Burke.
Yeah. He was born in 1729.
Yeah, not the Edmund Burke of Burke and Hare fame, who went around stealing bodies
this
and
guy's
then
an Irish
selling
statesman.
them to crooked doctors.
This guy's an Irish statesman.
Irish statesman. My name's Edmund Burke, and I'm telling you, that evil only happens where good men do nothing.
That's right.
Yeah.
Thank you. You sounded just like that.
Exactly, yeah. So all I'm saying is, now is the moment for action at West Ham. That is my view.
Okay. Well,
in fact, it should have been action at West Ham should have been 3 games ago.
Yeah, but since it hasn't happened, what are you suggesting? They should just leave whoever is number 2 in charge, or they should hire somebody else?
Well, that is the skill of the plan. The skill of the plan is, I mean, let's face it, Leicester did a brilliant job. Is anybody now still talking about Ranieri and
No one.
bleeding hearts for him and beating the drum for the shocking way
Well,
he was treated?
I think you'll find that I did
the
say
answer
at
is
the time.
no.
I did say at the time when all these sort of ridiculous people were saying things like, the heart of football has died,
that's
and
right.
it's been killed and smothered to death, and awful stuff like that. Gary Lineker was the chief mourner, by the way, saying that it was disgraceful.
I don't think he was.
He was. He said it was disgraceful the way
You've got a bit of a
Ranieri was
downer on
treated.
Links, haven't you?
Well, I haven't got downer on him. I just like to remind people what he says about things, because he's
Yeah.
not always, the seeker of truth and justice on these matters, right?
Yes.
Anyway, the fact is, of course, now everyone says, "Oh yeah, Leicester did the right thing."
That's right.
Heard Adrian Durham saying it the other day.
Really?
Isn't it? Is there anybody who would now say that Leicester did the wrong thing?
Yeah.
Of course not. And the idea that they somehow were, doing a terrible disservice to the game is an utter nonsense.
I did it before you. I said it before you. I actually said when
It's
it
not a
happened.
competition.
I said it's too late. I said it's
Well,
not.
no, you said that they should have sacked him at the start of the season.
I did. I said it's not soon enough. I said this thinking pattern should have happened before Christmas because it was obvious they were on a downward. On the downward side of the parabola, and
the parabola. It's the second time you said that this week.
That's right. Yeah,
is that your word of the week?
No, it's not my word
parabola.
of the week. No, the parabola is there.
Yeah.
By the way, have you noticed that tonight I have not used the L word once?
Have you not?
Oh,
are you sure?
Yes.
Are you absolutely sure?
Certain.
Okay. Well, I bet you can't get through the whole show without saying it.
Well, we'll see.
Here's one from Gon, who says, "Edmund Burke, for heaven's sake, is Parry now saying philosophers aren't pointless by revering them? He changes his opinion every week."
What are you on about? What does that mean?
Well, Edmund Burke is a philosopher.
Yeah, okay, good for him.
And you don't like philosophers.
Well,
you're now quoting him.
I think philosophers are, by and large, a bunch of con men who go around convincing people that they're... I mean, what about the Maharishi Yogi?
Never mind him.
Hey, well, he was a philosopher.
No, he wasn't. He was a con man.
Well, that's exactly
was
what
not
I'm
a philosopher.
saying. Maharishi Yoga,
but he was not considered a great philosopher.
Love, peace.
Yeah.
And Ringo Starr, by the way, is still going
Look at
around
the time.
telling everybody love and peace.
Yeah.
And,
Well, he doesn't care. He's got more money than sense.
No, but Ringo is still affected by the Maharishi and still,
No, Ringo can't believe how lucky he is.
yields the peace sign.
No.
And every time Ringo puts out a tweet, by the way, he has to leave space at the end for love and peace.
Love and peace, yeah. Idiot. Here's one from Greg. Maybe
That's a bit unfair.
Maybe Porky should put his money where his mouth is and back Bilic to be the next manager to be sacked. You can get on to 4-1.
Well, I don't throw my money away on things like that. Well, no, hang on.
About 100
do you think I'd take any succour or comfort in seeing a man sacked from his job? It's a horrendous thing to happen to anybody. But I'm looking at it from West Ham's perspective.
Yeah, all right. I'm sure all the milk of human kindness is oozing out of you.
It certainly
Coming
is.
up next, we're going live to Augusta to find out what's going on the first day. Anyone sacked, says Porky. How many people did you sack during your reign of terror?
Oh, no, I never rated
Hashtag
terror.
Ask
No.
Porky, hashtag plank.
If I had to reposition someday, I always did it with the greatest of dignity, care, respect, and...
What about the guy you sacked because you thought he was the right guy, turned out to be the wrong guy?
Well, that's...
and he had to cancel his conservatory being built in the middle of it because he thought he'd been fired.
Yeah, he did, yeah. That was a mistake, I agree, but I rectified it pretty soon afterwards.
Really?
And anyway, that was just a mistake. That wasn't an act of malice or anything like that. So I wouldn't get involved in malice or anything like that.
No.
I've seen people who've been sacked, and shock and horror on their face and their lives ruined and wrecked and, penniless, 12 months later and all that kind of stuff. It's not nice.
It's not pleasant, no. How about this from Daniel? It literally took 37 minutes before Porky said literally. Literally a new record.
No.
Well, he's counting it. He must have heard it at 37 minutes.
I think he's got wave echoes in his ears.
And Martin says West Ham only normally last 2 or 3 seasons in the top flight before they get relegated again.
Yes. Well, no, that's not true. I mean, the whole idea of going to the London Stadium was that they would become a permanent top half of the Premier League team, and they were hoping a top 6 team. I tell you what, somebody's going to examine this at the end of the season and say, the West Ham season, when it turned to ashes in their mouth, and it literally did, because the sense of optimism at the start of the season, the problem was that they felt so confident about their move to the new stadium that it would be the panacea to all their ills.
Well, it's a little bit like a team inheriting, or not inheriting, but suddenly getting a massive input of funds. And
I agree.
Oh, look, we've got all this money now, so now we're going to be a top 5 team. It doesn't work like that, does it?
No, it doesn't work like that. And also the grounds cause them untold problems. The fans don't like it. And
police don't like it.
Police don't like it and all the location
Visiting
of it and all that
teams
kind of stuff.
don't like it.
And so there's more to what they called, the most seamless transfer to a new ground in the history of football. There's more to it than that. And they're still coping with it, still dealing with it. However, I find it difficult to believe that West Ham will get relegated this season, don't you?
Well, I mean, they're only 5 points ahead of the relegation at the bottom of the table. And, I mean, all they need to do is lose another 2 games and watch teams like Swansea and Crystal Palace and Hull win a couple of games, and suddenly they're down there.
But I think we're
could happen.
I think we're pretty much agreed that 2 teams are down already. That's Middlesbrough and Sunderland.
I don't think there's any doubt about that.
Yeah, exactly. Which means that and Swansea are floating around on 28 points. So it means...
But Swansea are in better form than West Ham, as a whole.
Well, Swansea, because I've got it here actually, out of the last 6 have only won 1 and drawn 1 and lost 4.
Yeah.
So they're all doing pretty badly. The team that's really raced to survival is Crystal Palace, who have won 4 out of their last 6.
Yeah, but they lost most recently during the week, didn't they?
Yes, they did, but they beat Chelsea amongst those 4 wins. So I think they've probably done enough to save themselves. So I'd be really surprised if West Ham gets sucked down into it because. Slaven Bilic is not a bad manager. He's run into a period of bad form, and his players aren't relegation fodder players. So I don't think they'll get sacked. They'll get relegated anyway. However, the smack of firm management is going to be needed to be applied
smack of firm management
at some stage.
As if that's some kind of sort of policy that you are very much in favour of.
I am very much in favour of the smack of firm management. You've got to let people know who's in charge. There are managers and there are workers, and there has to be a division between the two. And the problem with communism was always that they tried to pretend that managers and workers are the same people with the same responsibilities who get the same rewards in life. So a street cleaner in Moscow was earning the same amount of money as a brain surgeon who was saving people's lives in the Politburo. And when you build a society on that basis... I'm just giving you an example. When you build a society on that basis, obviously it will collapse and crumble because the one thing that drives people on in life is the incentive to prove, to achieve, and to better.
Yeah. OK. How about this one from David Edinburgh? He says, a few years back when Porky worked on 5 Live, he did back all 40 horses each way in the National, and he actually made a profit.
No, I didn't.
You never worked for 5 Live when the National was on, did you?
I don't think so.
You never worked for 5 Live, period. I mean, you did a couple of shows for him.
Yeah, well, I mean...
You wouldn't be described as ever working for BBC 5 Live.
Well, yes, I was I'm amongst the pantheon of greats that have...
You went there for about 2 weeks.
No.
You went there for 2 weeks.
No, I was
and then they never asked you back.
I was amongst the pantheon of greats who have...
Because you couldn't get on with Robbie Savage.
Who have graced the BBC studios. And I think you'll find that I'm on the, the board up there with the others.
On what board?
The board of...
what board?
Star presenters over the years.
Well,
and
there's
all
a
that
board,
kind of stuff.
is there?
Yeah.
Well, is your name on it?
Well...
Where is this board?
I don't want to. I don't.
No, I
want
want to know.
I
I want to
don't
go
wanna
visit it.
Because
I'd like to ask if they can show me round. I'd like to see your name up in lights.
Now, listen, you know as well as I do that the BBC have recently moved into new HQ, so I can't tell you exactly where.
Oh, you think they've moved the board?
Where the board of stars is?
It might not be easy to find it.
Sorry?
It might be easy to find the board.
Well, you know, I don't like to go on about these sort of things.
Okay.
You know, it's there, and you know, people mention occasionally to me about my conquering mission at the BBC.
Yeah, I remember when you were on it, people kept tweeting saying, "Why is Porky on the BBC? And why does he kid?" You said Talk Sport at one point.
Yeah, I did
when you were on it, which is easily done.
Yeah.
I have to say. How about this from James? He says, "I have £5 each way, or €5 each way, and 150 to 1 on Jason Duffner. That's a pretty good bet, and €20 to win on Rory at 7 to 1."
Okay.
Which is not bad.
That's not bad at all.
Stephen says, bad news for McIlroy. Porky has picked him, and we will now see a second-round collapso and missed cut.
Absolutely not,
Which
honestly.
is very possible.
Yeah, no, I think not.
I'd have to say.
I think not.
And Tom says, it's West Ham's board who are at fault. They promised millions for players and only got mostly loan players.
Yep.
Which I think is possibly true.
Yeah, well, it could be as well. What did you think of the way the news broke on Dustin Johnson withdrawing on the first tee?
Well,
I mean, you and I have been in the business a long time. I've rarely seen such a melee of interest and people around him pushing and jostling,
well, people
sticking cameras and microphones. I thought it was brilliant.
Well, interesting the way the question came up earlier about do I
yes.
get my money back? Because some people on Twitter now are saying surely he did start if he was actually out there on the tee as if he was ready to play.
No, what he did is he went out on the tee and he picked up a club and he said, I will know the minute I swing a club in my hand.
That's what I mean.
You know, just to
But
warm
what I'm
up
saying
whether
is
I can
that
do it. And he said he couldn't.
But that would be considered by many people and possibly by the bookies, and I don't know the answer to this, that he had actually started the tournament.
I think you've got to address a ball first, haven't you?
Well, I don't know.
I don't think he did.
No, he certainly didn't address a ball.
No.
But what I'm saying is that he got himself togged up, he got himself ready for the game, he walks out onto the tee, and I would say as soon as you walk onto the tee, you are taking part in a tournament. Before you hit a ball.
I mean, you may be right. There may be a point that's got to be discussed.
If you want to withdraw from a tournament, you have to withdraw from the tournament before you walk out there.
Did he actually get to the tee?
As far as I understand,
and was announced on the tee.
It was announced on the tee that he wasn't going to be playing.
No, was it announced that he was? And now, ladies and gentlemen, world number one, Dustin Johnson, arrives on the first tee.
That I don't think happened.
No, that's what I'm saying. So I think that's maybe it. You know.
But what I'm saying is, physically, if you walk out of the changing rooms and you walk out onto the golf course and you approach the tee, and if you walk anywhere near the tee, which would suggest that you're about to play, well, I think you're playing.
Actually, I'm not sure, MG, whether that actually happened. I'm just following here, right? Because I didn't see it live on TV. I was doing lots of things today, but apparently Dustin Johnson walked to the practice range. He tried a couple of shots and then turned around and told people he was feeling too much pain from falling downstairs and would not be entering the Masters this year. He cut a dejected figure as he walked back from the practice green to withdraw from the Masters. Yeah. So I don't think he did get to the first tee, actually.
Maybe he didn't get to the first tee. Well, I mean, but that is what the debate will be about. Yeah. And I'm sure the bookies will all say, if they can, they'll keep the money because that's what they'd like to do.
Yes. I thought Justin Rose looked good. I often think that the way a golfer dresses gives me confidence or lack of it in the way he's going to approach the game, you know. Yeah. And I thought Justin Rose looked great today. He had that sort of striped short sleeve polo shirt on with one of those typical sort of golfer's jumpers, you know, the short sleeve one.
What, are you going to give us a fashion rundown now of your view of the people playing in the Masters?
Well, I can't stand
Do you back everybody who plays in blue?
Eh?
Do you back everybody that plays in blue?
No. But I do think that golfers who go out to be garish, you know, with horribly checked trousers and all that, should be banned from the competition because I think it's disrespectful to the game and to the dignity of the game.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Mm-hmm. I'm just reading some tweets from Michelle Dewberry. Remember that girl that was going to take us up to a hole and show us around?
Yes.
So apparently she was on Question Time last night.
She's on Question Time.
She likes a bit of publicity, doesn't she?
She does like a bit of publicity, yeah. And she's also on...
She came on our show, though.
She came on our show. She's also on the Sky Show.
Oh, yeah, The Pledge.
The Pledge.
Yeah, she's on that, yeah.
And I think she was doing like a pay-per-view somewhere, all in the space of 24 hours. Yeah. So she's a very popular lady.
She's a very busy woman.
Very good at what she does.
She is very good at what she does, yeah. I'm sorry I missed that.
Yes.
Here's one from Revenger, who says, so discussion about West Ham turns into Porky describing communist Russia.
Well, no, no.
Quite the transition.
No. I just have to make the... look, if you've got enough knowledge of the way the world works, why not use it to explain things?
I agree.
Did you know, by the way, because I didn't, that Lee Westwood, who had that sensational round today and came back in 30, had Alan Shearer accompanying him?
What, caddying for him?
No, I don't think so, but I think he was around, like part of his entourage. You know
really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
I think he was around.
Well, I think they're quite good mates, though. I mean, Lee Westwood's quite a matey, chummy guy with quite a lot of footballers.
Oh, he is, yeah.
He's a very nice bloke, actually.
Yeah, I think he was with him during the practice before the start of the tournament.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thomas says, MG, the only board Mike Parry's been on is the Monopoly Go Directly to Jail board.
Well, that's very nice, isn't it, eh? Huh?
And apparently, thanks to Julian, who says you only declared to have been started the game once you've addressed the ball.
Exactly.
Well, you see,
I think that's exactly what I said.
I think you can argue about that. But
well, I don't think you can. I wouldn't. I would stop pushing this ridiculous fantasy of yours because it ain't going to happen.
You don't know anything about golf. When golf has some very, very arcane rules, and they're very strange. Some of them. This is Talk Sport. This is Talk Sport. We are the two mics. Lots of tweets coming in on the subject of whether Dustin Johnson has been deemed to have played or not. Quite a few people saying that they did bet on him and they've had their money returned.
Yes, exactly.
Which tend to suggest that the view is being taken that he didn't actually start. Johnson was standing on the first tee when he pulled out, says Dickie. Jason says a shot has to be taken for a player to be deemed to have started the tournament.
That's right.
And Anthony says you're only a participant in a tournament in golf when you have hit one shot off the first or 10th tees, depending on the tournament in question.
Yes, okay.
Right.
Now, a Brain of Britain person here called Lizzie says, I think neither of you know how one plays a game of golf. When you start, it's called teeing off, not playing. I think we knew that, didn't we?
We did know that.
Yes, that's right. I think here we were talking about somebody who hasn't teed off, and therefore was he actually deemed to have been playing in the tournament?
Yes, exactly. And also there are some very odd rules in golf. For example, before you are about to hit the ball, for example, you're standing on the first tee and you are, as they call it, addressing the ball.
Yep.
You know, you are addressing the ball when you put the club head behind the ball. Mm-hmm. So therefore, if something happens to the ball once you put your club head down, you know, that can be deemed to be something that you can be penalised for.
What do you mean if the ball blows off the tee?
If the ball blows off the tee, I mean, you know, if you're playing strict rules of golf, there could be a problem. Same if you're in the rough and you put your club down behind the ball, addressing the ball, and the ball moves, that's a penalty.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, so there's a lot of weird rules in golf.
Yeah, there are a lot of weird rules in golf.
Which would not sort of stand up to the test of logic.
Particularly about dropping balls as well and that sort of stuff.
Well,
you know,
I mean,
make sure you get them in the right
Westwood
position.
Before the start of the tournament saying that he knows that an awful lot of players have taken a sort of unfair advantage when marking their ball on the green, because you're supposed to mark the ball behind the ball, lift the ball up and replace it precisely where you picked it up from.
Yep.
But he was saying that people sometimes put the marker at the side of the ball and then replace the ball
in front of the marker.
In front of the marker.
That's right,
that sort of thing.
Gaining an inch or something like that.
Gaining even just half an inch.
Yeah, that's right,
you know, which, of course, is against the rules.
Completely against the rules.
Yeah.
Lee Westwood was the man, of course, who chased me round Royal Lytham St Anne's.
Why?
With a 3-iron, because I suggested that he would never win a major after he pulled out of the Masters.
Was this on the radio, you said?
Yeah, it was on the radio, We were doing the commentary at Royal Lytham St Anne's, and it must have been in the year 2002. Was Royal Lytham St Anne's in 2002?
I couldn't tell you that, but
I think it was either 2 or 3, 2002, 2003.
Right.
And his wife was having, I think it was their first child. And he decided to stay at home rather than go to the Masters because it was very close to the birth of his child.
Right.
And I said, whilst I respect his dedication to his duties and his responsibilities as a father that he's about to become, I don't think Michael Schumacher would have pulled out of a Grand Prix because his wife was about to give birth. Because, you know, as far as Schumacher's concerned,
winning was everything.
Winning was everything.
And neither would Ayrton Senna.
And neither would Ayrton Senna. And he took terrible exception to it. And for a number of years, we were at loggerheads. But we got over it.
When you say chased you round, I mean, did he actually catch you?
He was looking for me.
Yeah.
And a couple of people told me.
And he's quite a big guy as well.
Oh, yeah, he's a very big guy,
He would have done you a lot of damage.
He would have done me. Well, no, he wouldn't actually. He wouldn't have resorted to physical violence. I think he wanted to verbally joust with me.
Is that right?
I'll give him the benefit.
And what did you do? Did you go and hide?
Well, I was in the champagne tent, and
it's not very hard to find you then.
yeah, and
that'll be him lying down over there.
Well, no, and I decided that the better part of valour was stoicness.
Right.
So I stayed in the champagne tent, had some more champagne. I drank champagne in those days.
Yeah.
It was before I became a semi-invalid.
You're now calling yourself a semi-invalid.
Well,
when did this happen? Sorry. Sorry, that's rather sort of slightly poked in there. When did you suddenly become a semi-invalid?
Well, no, I was a semi-invalid for the first year or so after I contracted acute heart failure.
Right, okay.
I've since fought back to normality.
So you're not an invalid at all?
No, I'm not an invalid, but only 1/3 of my heart works. But I just cope with it because I refuse to let it slow me down.
What would be the word for a third invalid, like as opposed to semi-invalid?
What do you mean?
Well, if you was to say I'm not, you said a semi-invalid. If you were a third invalid, what would it be?
A 1/3 invalid?
Yeah.
I think it'd be called semi-incapacitated.
Really?
Yes.
Well, no, I
yes. was
thinking of a word that didn't involve semi, which was just in two, isn't it?
Oh,
what I'm looking for is a word that breaks everything to three.
What about a tripart invalid?
Tri-invalid, maybe.
Yeah, tri-invalid, tripart invalid.
Stephen says this, in horse racing, if you bet anti-post and the horse doesn't run, you lose your money.
Yes.
Golf may be the same.
Oh,
well, I think we've established that it's not.
No, I think anti-post... I think, that's when you put a bet on like months in advance, isn't it? Because you think you know something other people don't, so to speak. Yeah, no, I think that's
somebody's found a press release. It's amazing what people find.
Oh, yes?
Somebody's found a press release. This is Steve the cabbie. And the press release is from, believe it or not, the BBC.
Oh, yes.
Mike Parry to present 606 on BBC Radio 5 Live.
Well, there you go.
Parry joined Talk Radio in 1999, better known as Talk Sport, and worked there until February 2011.
Exactly.
Mike Parry said of his new role on 5 Live, and I quote, "In broadcasting terms, I feel I've just had a call from the manager of Real Madrid." What a complete and utter scumbag you are. What an opportunity. What an opportunity to rise to the challenge of hosting one of the most famous slots in British broadcasting.
Yes.
It's FA Cup weekend, and I can't wait to meet the 606 listeners for the first time.
Well, there you go.
That's appalling.
What do you mean it's appalling?
That's horrendous.
Why?
Well, you sound like, what's his face?
Who?
Keane, the guy who played, his boyhood dream to play for everybody.
Oh, I see what you mean. Robbie Keane.
Robbie Keane.
Yeah, I always wanted to be a Liverpool player.
Wanted to be a Liverpool player.
Always wanted to be a Celtic
player.
Yeah, that's right.
You're talking about, it's just been like you're going to get a call from the manager of Real Madrid.
Well,
you didn't last the season, did you?
Well, I mean, no, that wasn't the case at all. Other options came along.
You stand in for regular presenter Mark Chapman on Radio 5 Live with Robbie Savage on Saturday, 19th of February.
That's right. Got on very well with Robbie, and it was all going very well.
Yeah.
And
that's not what I heard.
Oh, well, I don't care what you heard.
Although, to be fair, he does listen to our show. He did tweet us the other day.
Exactly, yeah. And then other opportunities came along.
Oh, yeah.
And, one picks up where one leaves off and all that kind of stuff.
So when you went off to do the old satellite broadcasting thing, that was a bit like leaving Real Madrid to go and join Lincoln City, wasn't it?
Not really. It was like leaving Real Madrid to go and start an exciting new venture, reaching for the stars, and who knows what could have come of it had it been properly run.
Yeah.
That's all I can say.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Who could say?
Who could say? Yeah, absolutely. So there we are.
Yeah.
Now then, I'll tell you what I want to talk to you about.
Yes.
I want to talk to you about an issue which is bothering me in terms of the world's economy.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know there's a company in Saudi Arabia which is worth so much, it's worth like almost the rest of the stock market put together?
Really?
Yeah.
What sort of company is it?
Well, it's an oil company. Now, the Prime Minister is out in the Middle East and she's gone on the plane.
Back, isn't she?
Is she back? Yeah, okay.
She's back, yeah.
She's been out in the Middle East, and she went on the plane that was not the official RAF plane because Prince Charles nabbed that one for his tour, okay?
Yeah.
However, whilst there, the Prime Minister used a 2-day trip to the Desert Kingdom to hold intensive talks with Saudi ministers and executives at the state-owned oil company Aramco.
Aramco, yeah, I've heard of them.
Right?
Yeah, that's been the oil company of sort of the Saudis for many decades.
That's right. Now, this company is so big, right? They want to bring it to the world's biggest stock market, to flotation in London.
Right.
But nobody knows what effect it will have on the British economy, the stock market, or the world economy. The firm is set to be valued at 1.6 trillion. Trillion.
Uh-huh.
Right, 1.6 trillion.
Right.
When it sells 5% of its shares on the open market, London is in a race with New York to win the flotation, which will be worth hundreds of millions to the victor.
Right. So they're only selling 5% of the shares. They're not. So the The 1 trillion valuation is for the whole company.
Exactly.
And they're selling 5% of that.
Yeah, what they're saying is that when they sell the 5%, whatever the 5% goes for, they reckon will add up to the company worth 1.6 trillion. You see what I mean?
Right, yeah.
The other 19 parts of it.
So 20 times that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly right. But the problem is, apparently, it's so vast. The Saudi Arabian state oil company Aramco is the most valuable firm in the world, worth £1.6 trillion. It is bigger. Get this is incredible. It is bigger than the economy of Italy.
Wow.
Incredible.
Well, to be honest, you wouldn't want to buy any shares in Italy.
Oh, no, you wouldn't know. Even if just a small part of the company floats, it would still dwarf every other business on the London Stock Exchange put together, which has a value of 2.8 trillion in total.
Although, is it possible, as Anthony has just tweeted here, he says Saudi Aramco won't be valued as much as they believe, though. You heard it here first. Is it possible that they're kind of ramping up the expectation on this thing?
Well, the reason why it's worth so much, and people say, how can it be? You know, if the oil price has dropped to sort of $50 a barrel and it used to be $130 a barrel, the reason is because of the reserves it has.
Right.
And it says Aramco produces 10.2 million barrels of oil a day, enough to fill 643 Olympic swimming pools, which I don't think is a lot, really, do you?
Well, I mean, they limit us. I mean, they could produce a lot more if they want to, but they don't want to.
But the key factor to its wealth, to its value, its reserves could meet the world's energy needs in total for 7.5 years.
Right.
The revenues prop up lavish spending by the Saudi state, meaning foreign workers who go there pay no tax, and public sector staff get large and free bonuses and pensions for life.
Right.
I mean, it's an incredible place.
Are you going to be buying into it then?
Well, I mean, you have to sort of think about it, don't you?
Well, if you've got spare money, I suppose.
Yes.
Depends how much the shares are.
Yes.
This is Talk Sport.
It's not about the money, money, money. We don't need your money, money, money. We just want to make the world dance. Forget about the price tag. Ain't about the cha-ching. Ain't about the ba-bling. Wanna make the world dance. Forget about the price tag.
This is Talk Sport. We are the two Mikes. William says this. I wonder if Porky's ever written an article or been quoted in cycling magazines. Have you ever done that?
Why?
Ever written for a cycling magazine?
No, why would I?
Well, I don't know.
I tell you what happened.
You're a man of many parts.
No, I tell you, you were going on about sacking before and all that kind of stuff, right? Now, when I arrived down in Fleet Street for the first time as the new Supremo of the Birmingham Evening Mail, became their London editor in their London office.
How many people were you in charge of?
6.
6 people.
6 people.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a waste of money.
And I was
Why
only
would the Birmingham Mail want 6 people in London?
Well, 3 of them worked for the city office for the Birmingham Post, believe it or not. And
so you weren't really in charge of them?
I was, yeah.
No, you weren't.
I was.
Rubbish.
I was Supremo.
Was that your title?
No.
What was your title?
London editor. Yeah.
But it wasn't.
What do you
I bet it wasn't London editor.
Why do you say that? Why do you dispute everything I say?
I don't dispute everything you say, but I dispute things that I know about. And when you come down to be working in the London office of the Birmingham Post and Mail, they would not call you London editor, particularly if you're a junior reporter.
No, I wasn't a junior reporter. I'd already been the chief reporter in Birmingham. That's why I was posted to London. Okay?
I see. Okay.
Anyway, that's another
story.
story.
I'm sure you've got a business card you can show me because you keep everything.
I may have somewhere.
Oh, well.
Anyway, so I got there, and the first thing I realised was that the guy who worked directly to me, like the sort of...
The deputy editor.
Well, no, he was chief reporter, actually. We didn't have a deputy editor. It was too big a job to fill. The chief reporter was a thick imbecile called David, right?
Right.
I mean, so thick you couldn't make
How
it
did
up.
he become chief reporter?
Well, because some idiot in Birmingham thought, because he had a London accent and came from
they didn't have very high standards, this organisation,
No,
did they?
and came from somewhere like Plaistow or somewhere like that, you know.
Plaistow.
Yeah, Plaistow, yeah. And I know a few coppers at the yard. Yeah, just get up the yard. I said, well, we're not really interested in London crime, David. You know, we're interested in...
Well, this is why I'm asking, why do you have so many people in London?
Well, because we used to cover things like showbiz and all that. I used to interview people like, you know, Hazel, what's her name?
Hazel O'Connor.
Yeah, Hazel O'Connor, Breaking Glass and all that kind
Birmingham.
of stuff. No, because we had like a national attitude to showbiz and TV and all
does
that.
anybody wonder why newspapers didn't last?
Well, I don't know.
They wasted a fortune on this
But anyway,
rubbish.
this thick as a brick Dave, you know, I just go up the yard and talk with a few of my...
like Chaz and Dave.
Yeah, see if they've been feeling a few collars, you know what I mean, like, you know. He really thought he was an extra from the Sweeney. So anyway, I decided this guy was, you know, had to go.
Right.
But what I noticed was that occasionally he came in this Lycra stuff, you know, and it's the first time I realised that some people...
Did they even have Lycra then?
Yeah, they did,
Really?
yeah. First time I realised...
Had you been given a sort of a prerequisite idea that you were supposed to be sacking people then? Oh,
yeah, I had to shake things up.
Yeah.
I went down there as a hatchet man.
Right.
Yeah, definitely,
But
yeah.
you volunteered for that, no doubt.
Well, no, it was part of the
I thought you didn't like sacking people.
No, I didn't. That's just the point. I'm going to tell you about an act of great kindness.
Oh, yeah.
So I noticed that he came in. I said, what are you doing then? He said, I'm a big cycling fan.
Oh, yeah.
I said, oh, really? He said, yeah. He said, it's my hobby. At the weekends, I go off cycling, around Kent and all this kind of stuff.
Right.
I said, oh, yeah. He said, and then sometimes, if I, really have a great weekend, I'm a marshal at a cycling race, in somewhere like, Essex or somewhere. So that's brilliant. Yeah, okay. So I got a brilliant idea in my head. I rang up the editor of Cycling magazine and I said, are you looking for anybody? And he said, well, funny enough, they were. And I said, well, I've got a brilliant guy.
Yeah.
I said, this man is so good, I said, but he's totally distracted from his job here by being obsessive about cycling.
Yeah.
I said, and he'd do a brilliant job for you. And he got the job.
And what was the job there?
Reporter on Cycling magazine.
Chief reporter.
I don't think he was even chief. I think he was
the only one.
Yeah, he was so excited.
What does he do for a cycling magazine?
Well, you go and report on races and
Yeah.
things, you know what I mean?
Right.
And he was so excited, he sent me the cutting of his first report in Cycling magazine.
Uh-huh.
And it was like, it's a monthly magazine.
Didn't realise you'd stitched him up.
No, he had no idea. No idea. And it's a monthly magazine, so this report, this race, was about 6 weeks ago, you know what I mean? Or something like that.
Yeah.
I remember the intro now saying something like, the Kent 23-miler, through Dartford, was the most brilliant race I've ever seen, with a brilliant start and an even more brilliant finish. This is why the guy...
That's unbelievable, isn't it? Is he still alive, do you think?
Well, I doubt it very much indeed. No, he's quite a heavy drinker as well as a cyclist. So
Well, how can you be a heavy drinker and a cyclist?
I don't know, but he managed to mix the
So
two.
who else did you get rid of? So that was down to 5 then.
Well, all the city people had to go because they were all boneheads. They all thought.
So they all went.
Well, they thought the world owed them a living, you see,
Right.
and they used to talk gibberish all day about shares and stocks and all that. But they were only working for a paper that had a circulation in those days of about 25,000.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I mean, nowadays, probably
Yeah.
a paper like Daily Express has 1 city correspondent.
Yes.
Why would the Birmingham Mail want 3?
Well, the reason was because you're talking about an era when Birmingham still believed itself to be the workshop of the world,
Yeah.
and they had loads of companies, like Dunlop were
Yeah.
based there and all that, and so they said,
Yeah, but
right,
that was more like an industrial job, wasn't it?
yeah.
Than
Well,
a city job.
Well, yeah, there were 2 aspects to it. The industrial job was the fact that everybody in the Midlands in those days was always on strike.
Yeah.
British Leyland was always on strike.
Right.
The drivers
British
who drove...
Steel.
But they weren't in the mid. Well, Bilston, I suppose, in the Black Country, yeah, they were on strike. The steel workers, the people who made tyres were on strike.
Yeah.
The people who actually delivered the cars, on these huge transporters, they went on strike. Everybody went on strike all the time.
Everyone was on strike.
Yeah, and the industrial correspondent who got all the stories all the time because he was on the inside was Richard Littlejohn.
Yeah.
Who now, of course, is
He's columnist of the Daily Mail,
columnist of the Daily Mail and sometime TV celeb.
Yeah.
So I mean, look, it was just a fascinating development in the decade of unrest in this country, and one that I steered through manfully.
I
I
see.
say it myself.
Well, there's a lot of people who
Yeah.
want to talk about your prowess in the stock market business.
Yeah.
How about this from Wrong Star?
Oh,
Can't
yeah.
help but think this Saudi oil company story is another porky attempt to gerrymander the market somehow.
No, it's
and,
not, no.
And Davey says, Porky, you plank. Old MG asked, are they hyping the stock price?
Yes.
And Stephen says, now watch shares in Saudi Aramco plummet after the news that Porky is set to invest.
That's a bit harsh, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Anthony, who knows a bit about these things because he works in the markets, right?
Oh, yes.
He says this. He sent us a piece of paper which says the original estimate offered by Saudi Arabia,
Yeah.
which placed Saudi Aramco's worth at around $2 trillion, was based on a valuation of Saudi Arabia's oil-proven reserves,
Right.
261 billion barrels,
Right.
multiplying that at $8 per barrel. Those reserves alone are worth over $2 trillion. But when Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman made that original estimate, it garnered some scepticism. How could any company be worth such an astronomical sum?
Yes.
So now they're putting their true value closer to $400 billion rather than $2 trillion.
Well, the estimate that. But the estimate I gave you was 1.63 trillion.
Yeah.
So that's not as excessive as the
but
correspondent there was telling us.
Yeah, but 400 billion is not even half a trillion, is it? There's a trillion, I presume.
Yeah,
is
but
1,000 billion.
That's just somebody sending us a communication expressing his belief in what the true value is. I'm reading it from, very authoritative sources.
I see.
Yes.
Alan says this. I remember Porky on 5 Live after Everton beat Man United in the Cup and said they'd win the final.
Yes.
Porky's jinxed it again.
Yeah, that was in the semi-final, wasn't it, when we played them? Yeah, and then we lost to Chelsea.
Says, how does Mike Parry describe his talk sport position now after 5 Live, a.k.a. Real Madrid? Mm-hmm. He thinks it's more like mid-table mediocrity, i.e. Everton.
Oh, no, not at all.
Harsh, isn't it?
No. I mean, we are the best here. There's no doubt about it. No doubt about it.
I don't have any doubts about that.
I have no doubts about it
5
either.
Live, actually, has not been doing very well, has to be said.
Yeah, exactly. And, we've got the... we are the biggest commercial station in this country and the biggest sports station in the world. There is no doubt about that.
Indeed.
Yes.
Hobbsy, rather, says, I'm listening live from Morocco. That's a new one. Downloaded a few podcasts for my flight home tomorrow. Looking forward to it. And, of course, now that it is the Easter week, the Easter holidays, you won't have to worry about this because you don't have kids. But did you see that Supreme Court judgment yesterday where they've got that guy from the Isle of Wight now having to face jail or at the very least a hefty fine for taking his daughter out of school?
Didn't he go to the Supreme Court, was it?
Well, he didn't go to the Supreme Court. The local authority in the Isle of Wight appealed the case to the Supreme Court.
I see, yeah.
The Supreme Court upheld their view and said, in fact, that they were right and he was wrong. So he now has to go back to magistrates' court where he's going to be sentenced to either a fine and or prison time for taking his daughter out of school. It's absolutely outrageous.
It is utterly ridiculous.
Incredible.
Utterly ridiculous.
I mean, they basically now said that it is illegal, which means punishable by a fine and a criminal charge if you take your children out of school.
Utterly ridiculous.
Which is nonsensical, isn't it?
Of course it is. It should be up to the parent themselves. Look, in the long term, what you are prospectively doing is damaging your own child's education. Yeah. So you will make amends, presumably, for the week your child's out of school to make sure that you're not damaging your child's education.
I have total sympathy with the school point of view, which is that we can't just let anybody take their kid out of school whenever. Yeah. And I totally agree with that. But surely there's got to be a commonsensical point of view where if you go to the school headmistress or the headmaster and say, look, there's a reason why we have to do this, not just to save money, but because either it's, grandmother's birthday or some kind of educational trip to Egypt or something. Sure. And they have to give you permission because if they don't give you permission, which a lot of them don't, they then fine you £60 per parent per child.
I know, but that's almost like a revenue boosting thing, isn't it? To raise money for the school funds, I
mean, I was supposedly going to be fined for taking my kids out of school to go to take them to their grandmother's 90th birthday party.
Really?
Which happened to fall about a week before the Easter holidays.
Oh, was that when you went to America?
It was when I went to America with the kids.
Yeah.
It's about 3 years ago.
I remember, yes.
And they wanted to charge us something like £240.
Yes.
I think it was, for taking 2 kids out of school, which is quite a lot of money to a lot of people.
Yeah, of course.
And in the end, it never actually came to pass. They never actually bothered finding us.
They backed off.
Yeah. But, I mean, what a ridiculous state of affairs.
Don't take on MG.
Well, exactly right. Exactly right. Now, coming up, we're going to be talking about something very, very interesting about the Deep Space Gateway with Dr. Pamela Gay. This is TalkSport.
Great. And he got the job.
And what was the job there?
Reporter on Cycling Magazine.
Chief reporter.
I don't think he was even chief. I think he was
the only one.
Yeah, he was so excited.
What did he do for a cycling magazine?
Well, you go and report on races and things, you know what I mean? Right. And he was so excited, he sent me the cutting of his first report in Cycling Magazine. And it was like, it's a monthly magazine.
I didn't realise you'd stitched him up.
No, he had no idea. No idea. And it's a monthly magazine, so this report, this race, was about 6 weeks ago, you know what I mean? Or something like that. Yeah. I remember the intro now saying something like, the Kent 23-miler, through Dartford, was the most brilliant race I've ever seen, with a brilliant start and an even more brilliant finish. This is why the guy...
That's unbelievable, isn't it? Is he still alive, do you think?
Well, I doubt it very much indeed. No, he's quite a heavy drinker as well as a cyclist. So.
Well, how can you be a heavy drinker and a cyclist?
I don't know, but he managed to mix the two.
So who else did you get rid of? So that was down to 5 then?
Well, all the city people had to go because they were all boneheads. They all thought...
So they all went?
Well, they thought the world owed them a living, you see, and they used to talk gibberish all day about, shares and stocks and all that. But they were only working for a paper that had a circulation in those days of about 25,000.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I mean, nowadays probably a paper like Daily Express has 1 city correspondent. Yes. Why would the Birmingham Mail want 3?
Well, the reason was because you're talking about an era when Birmingham still believed itself to be the workshop of the world, and they had loads of companies, like Dunlop were based there and all that, and so they said,
but that was more like an industrial job, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well,
a city job.
Well, Well, yeah, there were two aspects to it. The industrial job was the fact that everybody in the Midlands in those days was always on strike.
Yeah.
British Leyland was always on strike.
Right.
The drivers
British
who drove...
Steel.
Yeah, but they weren't in the mid. Well, Bilston, I suppose, in the Black Country, yeah, they were on strike. The steelworkers, the people who made tyres were on strike.
Yeah.
The people who actually delivered the cars, on these huge transporters, they went on strike. Everybody went on strike all the time.
Everyone was on strike.
Yeah, and the industrial correspondent who got all the stories all the time because he was on the inside was Richard Littlejohn.
Yeah.
Who now, of course, is
columnist of the Daily Mail.
Columnist of the Daily Mail and sometime TV celeb.
Yeah.
So I mean, look, it was just a fascinating development in the decade of unrest in this country, and one that I steered through manfully.
I see.
I say it myself.
Well, there's a lot of people who
Yeah.
want to talk about your prowess in the stock market business.
Yeah.
How about this from Wrong Star?
Oh,
Can't
yeah.
help but think this Saudi oil company story is another Porky attempt to gerrymander the market somehow.
No, it's
and,
not, no.
And Davey says, Porky, you plank. Old MG asked, are they hyping the stock price?
Yes.
And Stephen says, now watch shares in Saudi Aramco plummet after the news that Porky is set to invest.
That's a bit harsh, isn't it?
Yeah. And Anthony, who knows a bit about these things because he works in the markets, right?
Oh, yes.
He says this. He sent us a piece of paper which says the original estimate offered by Saudi Arabia,
Yeah.
which placed Saudi Aramco's worth at around $2 trillion, was based on a valuation of Saudi Arabia's oil-proven reserves,
Right.
261 billion barrels,
Right.
multiplying that at $8 per barrel. Those reserves alone are worth over $2 trillion. But when Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman made that original estimate, it garnered some scepticism. How could any company be worth such an astronomical sum?
Yes.
So now they're putting their true value closer to $400 billion rather than $2 trillion.
Well, the estimate that. But the estimate I gave you was 1.63 trillion.
Yeah.
So that's not as excessive as the correspondent there was telling us.
Yeah, but 400 billion is not even half a trillion, is it? Because a
That-
trillion, I presume, is 1,000 billion.
That's just somebody sending us a communication expressing his belief in what the true value is. I'm reading it from, very authoritative sources.
I see.
Yes.
Alan says this. I remember Porky on 5 Live after Everton beat Man United in the Cup and said they'd win the final.
Yes.
Porky's jinxed it again.
Yeah, that was in the semi-final, wasn't it, when we played them? Yeah, and then we lost
Kenny
to Chelsea.
says, how does Mike Parry describe his talk sport position now after 5 Live, a.k.a. Real Madrid? He thinks it's more like mid-table mediocrity, i.e. Everton.
Oh, no, not
It's a bit
at all.
harsh, isn't it?
No. I mean, we are the best here. There's no doubt about it. No doubt about it.
I don't
Never-
have any doubts about that.
I have no doubts about it
5
either.
Live actually has not been doing very well, has to be said.
Yeah, exactly. And, we've got the... we are the biggest commercial station in this country and the biggest sports station in the world. There is no
Indeed.
doubt about that.
Indeed.
Yes.
Hobbsy rather says, I'm listening live from Morocco. That's a new one. Downloaded a few podcasts for my flight home tomorrow. Looking forward to it. And, of course, now that it is the Easter week, the Easter holidays, you won't have to worry about this because you don't have kids. But did you see
Yes.
that Supreme Court judgment yesterday where they've got that guy from the Isle of Wight now having to face jail or at the very least, a hefty fine for taking his daughter out of school?
Didn't he go to the Supreme Court, was it? in
Well,
this
he
country?
didn't go to the Supreme Court. The local authority in the Isle of Wight appealed the case to the Supreme Court.
I see, yeah.
The Supreme Court upheld their view and
Right.
said, in fact, that they were right and he was wrong. So he now has to go back to magistrates' court where he's going to be sentenced to either a fine and or prison time for taking his daughter out of school. It's absolutely outrageous.
It is utterly ridiculous.
Incredible.
Utterly ridiculous.
I mean, they've basically now said that it is illegal, which means punishable by a fine and a criminal charge if you take your children out of school.
Utterly ridiculous.
Which is nonsensical, isn't it?
Of course it is. It should be up to the parent themselves. Look, in the long term, what you are prospectively doing is damaging your own child's education.
Yeah.
So you will make amends, presumably, for the week your child's out of school to make sure that you're not damaging your child's education.
I have total sympathy with the
Yes.
school point of view, which is that we can't just let anybody take their kid out of school whenever.
Yeah.
And I totally agree with that. But surely there's got to be a commonsensical point of view where if you go to the school headmistress or the headmaster and say, look, there's a reason why we have to do this, not just to save money, but because either it's, grandmother's birthday or some kind of educational trip to Egypt or something.
Sure.
And they have to give you permission because if they don't give you permission, which a lot of them don't, they then fine you 60 quid per parent per child.
I know, but that's almost like a revenue boosting thing, isn't it? You know, to raise money for the school funds,
I mean, I was supposedly going to be fined for taking my kids out of school to go to take them to their grandmother's 90th birthday party.
Really?
Which happened to fall about a week before the Easter holidays.
Oh, was that when you went to America?
It was when I went to America with the kids.
Yeah.
It's about 3 years ago.
I remember, yes.
And they wanted to charge us something like £240.
Yes.
I think it was, for taking 2 kids out of school, which is
Yes.
quite a lot of money to a lot of people.
Yeah, of course
and
it
in the
is.
end, it never actually came to pass. They never actually bothered finding us.
They backed off.
They backed off.
Yeah.
But, I mean, what a ridiculous state of affairs.
Don't take on MG.
Well, exactly right. Exactly right. Now, coming up, we're going to be talking about something very, very interesting about the Deep Space Gateway with Dr. Pamela Gay. This is TalkSport.
Great.
TalkSport, we are the two mics. We're going to talk to Dr. Pamela Gay very, very shortly. She is, of course, from the Astronomical Society of the Pacific. But before we do that, and we apologise to you, Dr. Gay, we've just got the news coming in that the US has carried out a series of missile attacks in Syria, basically in response to the Syrian government's chemical weapons attack this week. Donald Trump and the Trump White House made some noises earlier on in the day that something would have to be done.
Yes.
And it looks very much as though something has been done, and it's the first time the White House has ordered military action against forces loyal to Bashar al-Assad, the Syrian president. We don't yet know exactly what's happened, but it looks like at least 60 missiles have been fired into Syria. It's a lot of
missiles, by the way.
Which is a lot of missiles.
And you have to remember the delicacy of the relationship between America and Russia.
Yeah.
Russia, who are an outspoken and very, very vocal supporter of the Assad regime.
Well, exactly. And also, of course, there's the Russian involvement as well.
Yep.
Although the Russians, I think, earlier on had said this week that, the Syrians shouldn't expect their loyal support over absolutely everything that they do.
That's right.
And apparently they were fired from 2 warships in the Mediterranean Sea. They targeted a government-controlled site. At least 80 people have been killed, of course, previously in this chemical attack. We'll bring you more details on this as soon as we've got them. But what it does signal is that Donald Trump is doing more in the first sort of few months of his presidency than Barack Obama ever did, because he was always very reluctant to get involved in military action in Syria.
Well, the interesting thing is that Barack Obama decided to sort of close the curtain around America, didn't he? Didn't want to look overseas. And funnily enough, one of the first speeches Mrs May made, our own Prime Minister, when she got into government here, was to say we weren't going to recklessly fight wars overseas.
Right.
And she said that, we believed at the time, in consultation with the new president, Mr Trump.
Well, we'll follow this one as it unfolds over the course of the next couple of hours.
There was a huge wave of sort of revulsion around the world after those gas attacks and some particularly distressing pictures of the effect it had on children.
Yeah, absolutely disgraceful, Let's talk to Dr. Pamela Gay, though, anyway. Dr. Pamela Gay, very good morning to you. Apologies for keeping you waiting, but there's a bit of a breaking news story going on.
I focus on things off this planet, and sometimes we need to look down as well as up.
Yes, absolutely right.
Exactly.
And, sometimes I suppose when you do have the opportunity to look up instead of at what is going on around you, maybe part of what that's all about is to maybe create a better place to live for everybody.
It's true, and the only way we're going to get off this world is if we figure out how to all work together. It's just too hard of a problem that requires too much creativity for any one nation to think that they have all the expertise, all the ideas, and all the genius to accomplish it alone.
No, quite. Now, we're talking to you tonight specifically about this Deep Space Gateway. Tell us a little bit about that.
So this is a new plan being put forward by Boeing Corporation, which has done a lot of things for the NASA Space Agency. This is going to be an add-on to their current Space Launch Systems, which is the big rocket system they're working on. It's going to be built during 4 different upcoming missions spread out across many years. But when it's done, it will give us a new space station that, instead of orbiting the Earth only 300 miles up, is instead going to be orbiting the Moon.
Orbiting the Moon. That's a fantastic development, Doc. And will this mean that will be like a platform to leap, beyond the space that we know at the moment in its accessibility to man's exploration?
Well, this is certainly the hope, and this is certainly how they named it. The Deep Space Gateway should get everyone thinking of this is how we get beyond the Earth, beyond the moon, and to Mars, and maybe beyond. It is going to be someplace where it's thought astronauts can meet up, build their space station, not their space station, build their spacecraft to get on to Mars. And it's a platform that has everything they'll need to get off to the right start as, well, hopefully we start towards Mars.
And what's different from other sort of programs that have already been put into place and this? I mean, is this something, I mean, it's being planned to be sort of up and running as early as 2020, which is not very far away, really. Is this going to sort of put together all of the other ideas that other people have got, or is this going to be another separate sort of entity, if you know what I mean?
This is basically sometimes it's location. This one has a new location. Our current space station is snuggled right up next to the Earth. And it's so close to our planet that it really doesn't help a lot when it comes to overcoming the Earth's gravity, when it comes to having a ready platform for just dropping down onto the moon. This is going to be in a new location out closer to the moon. It's going to have the ability to change its orbit to allow spacecraft to leave it and head off to different places in our solar system, and to regularly go up and down from the surface of the moon. It's sometimes just as simple as putting your space station in the right place.
Does this alter the whole concept of what we believe at the moment, Doc, an astronaut is all about? Because you're going now to areas we haven't been before. You're also going into areas where we don't know if people will ever come back from it. I mean, isn't it going to alter the whole concept of what an astronaut's all about? The moment astronauts go up into space, they come back on short-term missions. They can be long-term, but they're very much in touch with the Earth. But that's not going to be the case in the future, is it?
No, it's definitely transitioning from that time when you have the hero explorers who are risking their lives and coming home with maps of the new world, of the new continents, the other side of whichever ocean you decide to cross.
Yeah.
Well, our ocean lately has just been the atmosphere. Well, now we're moving to the point where it's people leaving and knowing they're never going to come back, sort of like the first people to settle in Australia, the first people to settle in America. We weren't just explorers, we were settlers, and we're now looking towards the future where we settle on the moon, we settle on Mars, and we spread our humanity out so that, well, we're safe in more than one place.
And presumably you'd have to be quite careful about the selection process for who you would choose, because not only would you be choosing people who were obviously astronauts, but you would want people from all walks of life. So there'd have to be some kind of program put into place, would there not, Doctor, which would be a sort of, even a psychological type program, so that you would make sure that you weren't bringing up anybody who was going to be a problem.
That's entirely true. And NASA's actually been finding ways to run those sorts of real-world experiments here on the safety of our own planet. We have underwater experiment stations where people get isolated from everything, including the sun and air, and have to survive underwater. We have Antarctica, where people have been wintering for years. And each of these start to give us a taste of how bad it's going to be literally locked in a tin can. With this new Deep Space Gateway, they're looking to be able to extend this experiment to 100 days, 300 days out at lunar orbit, where it's no longer just an easy up-down from, well, a launch pad in Florida.
Mm-hmm. OK. And, Doc, is this all in the long term to do with what we've heard prophesised by, some of the brightest scientists in the world, that eventually man's going to have to find somewhere else to live as well as the Earth?
It's true. Our planet is going to get more and more uninhabitable for us over time. Exactly how long that's going to take is somewhat up to us, but also up to the sun. And we probably don't have more than 100,000 years, which sounds like a long time, but when you have to settle an entirely different planet, it's not that long at all.
Okay.
Yeah, I see.
It's going to be fascinating
Fine.
stuff. Well, listen, Dr. Gay, thank you very
Thank you very much indeed,
I'm
Doc.
sure we'll talk again some more about it when we've got perhaps a little bit more time, but we're a little pressed tonight because of the events going on in Syria. That's Dr. Pamela Gay, who is, of course, from the Astronomical Society of the Pacific.
Yeah.
And at one point or other in the near future, possibly as soon as 3 years from now, there will be a launch system in place to go
A mission
into
to
space.
Mars.
Mission to Mars. Who can tell? Now, just some news coming into us as we're speaking to you about this weapons attack in Syria. It looks as though 60 cruise missiles have been sent in from 2 different ships in the Mediterranean. Donald Trump, the president, is supposedly going to address the USA, the country, and the world, I guess, in the coming hours.
That's right.
But he's thought to have become so horrified by by what he saw, as you said, by that chemical weapons attack, that he had to act.
You're absolutely right. As we understand it, the US launched multiple strike missiles have targeted an airfield in Syria, or maybe multiple airfields. So they are, almost specifically targeting what Syria have got to attack their own people, rather than any sort of town civilizations, domestic.
Yeah, it's supposed to be a military target, we think. Also, some people are saying that because of the timing of it is interesting, because the Chinese are currently visiting Washington.
Yeah, they are.
And so it's kind of a sign as well by Trump to them that he's not afraid of taking a little bit of military action.
I totally agree. He's also made a plea to the Chinese to get something sorted out with North Korea. Perhaps he's reminded the Chinese, whilst they're in America, look, if you don't sort out problems around the world, I can.
Yeah.
This is all in response to an attack on a place called Khan Sheikhoun. And Khan Sheikhoun is the town where we think 3 days ago a chemical attack was made which killed 70 people. The worst mass casualty chemical attack in the 6-year war in Syria, which horrified the world. As you quite rightly say, experts who are looking at what happened there say they think it was a sarin nerve-aging gas attack, which, of course, is lethal and deadly. And people have just been wiped out. And of course, they are Syrian people, and the attack is presumed to have been made by the Syrian forces.
Yes, I'm seeing here the US strike was against something called the Shayrat Air Base, which is where the Syrian warplanes are believed to have dropped the chemical bombs from in that attack just a few days ago. We'll bring you more on this as soon as we know it.
Indeed.
Basically, what's happened is that Donald Trump has ordered a military strike on Syria in retaliation for what their chemical weapons did to all those children and all those other people just a few days ago. This is TalkSport. TalkSport, we are the two mics. The news that's just breaking is the US has attacked a Syrian airbase with about 60 cruise missiles, some of them Tomahawk cruise missiles, after this week's chemical weapons attack in Idlib, according to US officials. Donald Trump is at some kind of dinner with the Chinese at the moment.
He is,
but it looks as though he's taking some very firm action, which was sort of telegraphed a little bit earlier on this evening. So they said there might be a US attack, but very unusual given what we've seen from Barack Obama in the past 8 years, really.
Very unusual indeed. And some would say this is the best of Donald Trump, the decision maker, the businessman, and he's come in. Now, just to kind of put it into perspective, because you're absolutely right, all the chatter and talk coming out of Washington all day has been that Donald Trump may be on the brink of taking US action on behalf of the US in Syria. Now, the Chinese situation is very interesting because he was asked last night, what should happen with Assad? He stopped short of saying that the Syrian leader should be drummed out of office, but he did say, I think what Assad did is terrible. He told that to reporters who were travelling with him on Air Force One to the summit with the Chinese president, Xi Jinping, in Florida. And he called the use of Sara poison gas, if that what was used, an egregious crime, He said it shouldn't have happened and it shouldn't be allowed to happen. So he's been very specific and very firm on this. The US Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson, spoke by phone, we understand, with Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, about the gas attack. And a State Department official said just earlier on tonight, we sought the Russian analysis or readout of what they thought had happened. There's some indication here, Mike, that the Russians are not going to be as fervently opposed to the US action as some thought they might have been.
As they might have been, yeah. Well, it's interesting because at one point when the attack first happened, the Assad regime tried to plant it on the rebels, didn't they? They tried to say that this is not us, that we didn't do this.
Nothing to do with us.
But all the actual analysis and all the analysts of that region said this has got all the hallmarks of the Assad regime doing it.
Yes.
And then the Russians at one point appeared to suggest that it was a rogue missile that had somehow been fired by Assad's regime, but it had hit some kind of rebel, a bank of chemical weapons.
That's right.
So they were trying to sort of make it out that it wasn't Assad, but they obviously became more and more convinced that it was the Assad regime, and in fact have now walked away from them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
People often ask, why are the Russians, on the Syrian side? And the answer is quite simple, because for the past 35, 40 years, Syria's been a Mediterranean base for the Russians.
Yeah.
And they have recently upgraded their military facilities there.
Sure.
They've actually got a naval base there, which to all intents and purposes is Russian territory.
Sure.
So they
well, it's a warm water port for them, isn't it?
Yeah,
Which
so
is what
it
they
is.
want in the region.
Absolutely. It's it's their foothold in the what Mussolini used to call the Italian lake, the Mediterranean,
right?
And they're not moving. The military base is they've got there as well is in Latakia, which they've upgraded recently. But the main naval base, Tartus, has been there for 35 years, and there's nowhere in the world the Russians are getting out. So they have to, be supportive of the whoever's running Syria, not necessarily the Syrian government. But the point is that when the Americans start pushing missiles into Syria, the only possible response in terms of like-for-like missiles are Russian missiles.
Also the missiles are coming.
Response.
And also the missiles are coming from the sea, aren't they? It's not as if they could shoot planes down.
No,
these are cruise missiles that are being fired from quite some distance away.
Oh, absolutely.
So for the Syrians, they can't really respond to that. It wasn't given any. They weren't, because in the old days, sometimes in Clinton's administration and even in the Bush administrations, they would give warnings about stuff that was going to happen.
That's right.
They gave no warning about this last night at all.
No.
What's going to be interesting as well is what the British are going to say, because yesterday, and this is in the Telegraph tonight, Boris Johnson, the Foreign Secretary, had said that the preferred course of action from Britain's point of view would be for the United Nations to pass a resolution to start at least investigating the sarin attack to find out who's responsible for it. And of course, as usual, yesterday I was watching a report from the UN, and basically nothing was going on. The US ambassador was being very sort of fulsome in her criticism of Assad. She was holding up pictures of the dead children and saying, something has to be done. But the UN was clearly in no mood to do anything.
That's right.
As it often is,
That's right.
So if Boris Johnson has to come out this morning and say, or Theresa May has to come out this morning and say, this is the wrong thing to do, that's obviously going to play badly in Washington.
That's right, absolutely.
I don't think they'll do that. I think they'll come out and they'll have to support him, won't they?
No, of course they do. They will have to support him, but I mean, basically...
There's every right-thinking person who does not want to see that kind of thing going on will think that Trump has done the right thing here.
No, I was about to say to you, who, on a moral basis alone, who in the world could possibly turn around and say, oh, that was a very unfortunate thing to have done, Mr. Trump?
Right.
I mean, in many ways, I think he's been very clever. He's actually spoken like a father, if you see what I mean.
That's exactly what he's done,
seeing these children running around with foam coming out of their mouths, horrendous pictures. And he said that attack on children had a big impact on me, a big impact. My attitude towards Syria and Assad has changed very much. So by one act of, utter brutality by the Syrian regime, they've managed to change the mind of the United States president. And the United States president himself has proved that he's not just a politician. He's got some human feelings and emotions which appear to have played a part in him deciding that with the vast arsenal of weaponry that he has and the US have, they're going to make sure that if Assad of Syria is going around doing this, he's going to be whacked for it.
Yeah, exactly right. And that's going to lead eventually, I think, judging by what Trump has said in the last sort of few hours, to him having to step down. And, of course, you'll remember that Barack Obama very famously made that speech, which was full of vim and vigour, where he said that, there would be a red line drawn and using chemical weapons would be crossing that red line.
And that he never did anything
but he never did anything about it.
No.
And people became very fed up. I mean, just by watching Twitter, and Twitter's not always the best place to get reaction on these things, but the Twitter reaction over in America from what I'm seeing is, Thank goodness we finally got a strong president again.
Yes, that's right.
Thank goodness somebody in the White House is willing to do something about this horrible man and his horrible practices of gassing and poisoning his own people.
And children. And also, I think it's quite clever, and I'm not saying that he's done it for political reasons, but it's quite clever for Donald Trump to have done this so quickly and so specifically, because how can the Russians turn around and say to the rest of the world, well, we retaliated against the United States to defend a man who goes around gassing children?
Yeah.
You can't do that.
You can't.
And I think the Russians know that. I think Mr. Putin's not stupid enough to think, I'm going to step in here and reprimand the USA for what they've done. You can't.
No, absolutely not. And you think you'd have to say that Assad's time now may be limited because he can't really retaliate. And if he hasn't got the Russians on his side, then he's got no chance of making any sort of amends about it. He will have to start the process of a new government, I think.
I don't see how Russia could possibly retaliate to this in any way against the United States.
No,
You're absolutely right. The other thing is, I've been saying ever since Donald Trump got into the White House, look, couldn't you look at this from another perspective about his relationship with Russia? Isn't it actually sometimes quite good to have a president of the United States who is pally with the Russian leader, because then you've got less chance of a Third World War happening? And when we read that, the Russian foreign minister has been in talks with the US Secretary of State Rex Tillerson in the hours before this attack, are we then to be allowed to speculate that perhaps the Russians have said, we will not intervene, we will not retaliate, we will turn a blind eye to this?
Well, you would imagine that they would have been consulted in some way, shape or form.
I'm sure they would have been.
Something like this would have happened.
I'm sure they would have been.
But, of course, it's slightly more complicated than that, isn't it? Because it depends on how much you believe the Russians were involved in the dirty tricks before the election and all of those things, whether, there were conversations that went on. Because, yes, it's obviously better if they get along, but it might not be beneficial for the American sort of nation that two guys happen to get along who happen to be in opposition sort of power situation.
I totally agree. Now, the difficulty they've got here now, and this is what always plagues Middle East politics. Yeah. All very well saying, we'll get rid of that nasty individual Assad, goes around gassing children. Nobody could argue against that. He sounds like the most repulsive of men, doesn't he? But then what happens then? Who fills the void? Who fills the vacuum? Who then starts leading Syria? That is always the biggest problem, because much as he is a disgusting and horrible individual, Assad, you might just be replaced by another disgusting and horrible individual because of the tribal situation that's existed for centuries in the Middle East. Yeah. So the biggest situation here is, OK, if they decide they're going to get rid of Assad, he goes. What then comes next? Because we've seen that fail in Iraq, we've seen it fail in Libya, we've seen it fail in every Middle East country where, short-sighted Western politicians have decided, I know, the Arab Spring, let's give the Middle East democracy. Yeah. It doesn't work like that in the Middle East.
And it hasn't worked like that ever, really, has it? Now, of course, there's all sorts of twittering going on at the moment. People are retweeting old Donald Trump tweets, which is what they like to do. And from 2013, he tweeted this at the time. What will we get for bombing Syria besides more debt and a possible long-term conflict? Obama needs to get congressional approval. Now, obviously, Donald Trump has now attacked militarily Syria because he's now the president. He hasn't got congressional approval. People will point to that and say, well, look at this guy, he's a hypocrite. As soon as he gets into power and he wants to do something, he decides to do it. But I think, nevertheless, apart from those who absolutely hate Donald Trump, regardless of what he ever does, most people will be on his side for actually doing something. Because, as you say, he's reacted not like a politician, he's reacted like a parent.
Yes,
he's reacted like a man or a woman in any part of the world who saw what happened there and was truly appalled by it.
When he made the quote previously about what do we get for bombing Syria except a bill and all that kind of stuff, that was because what was happening in Syria was a civil war. Now, what he's done now is he has now reacted to a specific act of horrible aggression against the Syrian people by their own government. And that is very different to intervening in a country's civil war. Yeah. That is to stop this happening again. Because you can't have the world's policemen standing by watching the horrendous goings-on in Syria and allow them to happen again. Yeah. If you do, you lose your credibility.
Exactly right. We're going to be talking coming up very shortly to Mark Seibel, who's the chief of correspondence from McClatchy. He's going to tell us about what the latest developments in Syria are going to mean both for the White House and indeed for Downing Street. This is TalkSport. We are bringing you live news currently of Donald Trump ordering an airstrike with cruise missiles on Syria. He's now addressing the United States of America. Let's go live now.
World. We pray for the lives of the wounded and for the souls of those who have passed. And we hope that as long as America stands for justice, then peace and harmony will, in the end, prevail. Good night, and God bless America and the entire world. Thank you.
Donald Trump there, who interrupted a dinner that he was having with some Chinese diplomats and the leaders of China, in fact, who are visiting Washington, D.C.
President Xi Jinping.
Yeah, and Palm Beach, in fact, where he's down in Florida. He's made a hurried statement there, basically to announce that America has launched a cruise missile attack against the Syrian airbase in response to their suspected chemical weapons attack on a rebel-held town earlier in the week. He seems to be saying, basically, that the world needs to unite against what it is that Syria has been doing for the past several years, and that the bloodshed and the madness and the murder has to stop. Let's talk to Mark Seibel, who is, of course, a guest of ours right here on TalkSport. He's the chief of correspondence for McClatchy. Let's find out what he makes of what's unfolding as we speak. Mark, a very good morning to you. Welcome.
Thank you very much, David.
Thanks very much indeed for speaking to us.
Yep.
Donald Trump there's signalling really that he's going to be an action president, signalling that he was as repulsed by this attack that we all saw earlier in the week in Syria as anybody, almost as a parent rather than as a politician. He's going to have to build some coalitions presumably, but at this point it doesn't look like he cares.
Well, I think the situation for Trump is, first off, he's in a very tough situation in the United States politically. He lost his effort to repeal Obamacare. He is beset with half a dozen investigations into the Russia meddling. So in a way, this is the right moment for him to change the conversation. Which is not to take away from the idea that he feels very strongly that the U.S. has stood by and watched Assad do this sort of thing over and over and over again without taking any action against him. And so I think what will be really interesting is to see what he does on Saturday.
Saturday?
Friday morning, on Saturday, because on Friday morning he's sent all these cruise missiles into a Syrian air base. There are American troops on the ground in Syria, of course, working against the Islamic State. And so what's the follow-through? Is it just a one-off where they've lobbed 50 missiles basically at one air base? Or is he going to do something else that pushes the Assad government harder than this one evening of strikes?
But what is that he can do next, Mark? Because I think the options are limited. I think the reason why the cruise missiles have come, Tomahawk missiles from a long, long way away, is so that there is no direct conflict with forces in Syria, because Syria is full of Russian forces. So what are his options to follow it up without turning up the ante on confrontation with the Russians?
Well, I suspect he has informed the Russians. And, of course, Tillerson, as far as I know, is still scheduled to be in Moscow on Tuesday.
Right.
So there's plenty of opportunity for discussion here. And it may well be that the Russians also think it's time to rein Assad in a little bit. What I think the calculation has to be for the United States is, there's no one really to replace Assad, no one that we find palatable anyway. And so he doesn't want to do so much that Assad collapses. But perhaps it will bring Assad to more of a bargaining position. Perhaps it will convince the Russians that they really need to rein in the use of chemical weapons after the agreement a couple years ago to get rid of them.
Yeah, sure.
And also, I suppose what he's signalling as well, Mark, is that something has to be done. And I mean, as much as I take your point about his internal difficulties, and it's often said that foreign policy is always the last salvation of a president in domestic trouble. Basically, he's called for other civilized nations, in his words, to join efforts to end the slaughter and bloodshed in Syria. So he's not calling outright yet for an end to Assad's presidential reign. He's calling for an end to all of the bloodshed, I suppose.
Yeah, well, and that's something that I think everyone can be in favor of.
Yeah.
The question, of course, becomes, and you're there in the UK, are the British willing to do something?
Well, interesting. We were just talking about,
just
before we heard from Donald Trump there, Boris Johnson said yesterday, who's the Foreign Secretary, that he favoured some kind of United Nations, a way of getting at President Assad, rather than to do an investigation into who was responsible for the chemical weapons attack. So Britain, as far as we know, was nowhere near agreeing to an airstrike.
Right. Well, and the problem is, if you're going to use the United Nations, well, it has to go through the Security Council, and Russia will veto it. So that's a non-starter. And it's a very delicate situation. And as we say, who would replace Assad?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right.
The Obama administration reached that conclusion a couple of years ago, and I think that the British did as well, and the Germans, that, you can talk about Assad must go, but there's nobody to replace him.
Yeah, but I mean, the West have made that mistake so often, Mark. They made the mistake in Libya with Gaddafi. They made the mistake in Iraq with Saddam Hussein. Unless you replace, a dictator that you topple with somebody else who's strong, you've got a problem. Mark, I wonder whether, because you made the point that Rex Tillerson, the US Secretary of State, is still due in Moscow on Tuesday, is it possible that for all the criticism that President Trump has taken for his close relations to Russia, that actually on this occasion it might have been very beneficial for Donald Trump and Mr. Putin to have a line of communication between them over this very difficult and thorny problem in Syria?
Well, if they are talking, and if the Russians still believe they have a chance to better relations with the United States, and that's not at all clear to me anymore, because the atmosphere in Washington is so anti-Russian and frankly, pretty anti-Trump. It's difficult for me to know what the possibilities are there. But certainly, this is an administration that does have some personal lines to Moscow, and can use them, and maybe already has. There were conversations yesterday between Tillerson and Lavrov, and they may well have discussed this. This may not have been a surprise to Russia.
Indeed.
I have not seen the reports out of Moscow yet, and I don't know, what they're saying.
Are you seeing any reports out of Syria that we're not seeing in terms of what the actual effects of these attacks have been? I mean, presumably it's a military target, so we don't have any casualty figures or anything yet?
Yeah, I've seen no damage reports at all. It's a lot of munitions on actually a fairly small target. So I would imagine that the damage at the airbase itself is fairly heavy.
Right.
Yeah.
But of course, one of the big questions is, were there Russians or Iranians present at the airfield when it was struck?
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it does very much have the mark of a calling card, doesn't it? If you see what I mean, because I mean, for the last 6 years, Assad has been comfortable in his bed at night, knowing that the Americans probably aren't going to attack him. So he may have thought that the new regime had just extended the views of the old one.
Well, exactly. And after Tillerson's remarks and Nikki Haley at the UN last, that it's up to the Syrian people to get rid of Assad, and maybe we can learn to live with him.
Yeah.
This is quite a change of direction.
Of course,
it certainly is a change of direction. And how will it be? How will it be greeted, Mark, by Congress, by not necessarily Trump's enemies, but by the political establishment in Washington?
Well, I think the political establishment in Washington will embrace it. And I think that's why I cynically suggest it's a great way to change the conversation.
Yeah.
Because people like John McCain, who are very anti-Trump, doing something in Syria to undercut Assad. And so I think this is an opportunity for Trump to make peace with some of the angrier members of his own political party.
Yeah, but more relevantly, I think the people of the United States will welcome it, won't they? Because, generally speaking, America is a compassionate, democratic country. It doesn't like to see bullies going around the world, knocking off their own people.
We'll see, but, the United States has also been at war for 15 years in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
And the people are tired of it, so that's...
But they're also tired of weak presidency, aren't they, under Obama?
Well, the ones who voted for Trump are, I guess.
Well, I don't know. Trump's approval ratings are lower than any president we've ever had, and Obama's are higher than almost anybody but Jimmy Carter. So it's really difficult to know. We'll have a better sense of that next week.
Yeah, I agree.
don't know I think most people in the United States don't know that this has happened.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, basically, Mark, from what you're telling us, and I mean, I don't wish to cast any aspersions on your political views, but you're more or less saying to us that this is a bit more of a sort of, shall we say, a window dressing effect, a bit of a military attack that's not really a military attack in the sense that, it's perhaps more cosmetic than it at first appears.
Well, I don't know that yet. I would just keep in mind that there are many reasons for something like this to take place, and many benefits, political benefits to be had, in addition to just the military compassion, humanitarian aspects of it. Mm-hmm. And I just don't think we know enough yet to know which direction that's going to go.
Sure. Mm-hmm. Okay, Mark. Well, listen,
Mark,
we'll obviously
thank you very
be
much.
watching the developments as they develop throughout the course of the night. Mark Seibel there talking to us from the US about the reaction over there. Fascinating times. Donald Trump made a statement a little bit earlier on. Here's some more of that statement that we haven't yet heard.
Tonight I ordered a targeted military strike on the airfield in Syria from where the chemical attack was launched. It is in this vital national security interest of the United States to prevent and deter the spread and use of deadly chemical weapons. There can be no dispute that Syria used banned chemical weapons, violated its obligations under the Chemical Weapons Convention, and ignored the urging of the UN Security Council. Years of previous attempts at changing Assad's behavior have all failed, and failed very dramatically. As a result, the refugee crisis continues to deepen, and the region continues to destabilize, threatening the United States and its allies. Tonight I call on all civilized nations to join us in seeking to end the slaughter and bloodshed in Syria.
President Donald Trump there talking just a few moments ago about why he ordered the strike on this airfield, which is called Shayrat. It's about 150 kilometres north of Damascus. And from what we were just hearing from our guest, more than likely it's probably not even there anymore. 50 cruise missiles have been pelting down on it. Yeah. And you'd probably say it's probably been flattened, wouldn't you?
You would, except the only caveat I'd put on that is that they are notoriously sometimes wayward in where they land, cruise missiles. They travel so far. I know you can pinpoint them on a computer and say go there, but a shifting desert, literally sand and all that kind of stuff, they sometimes go out.
Sure.
One hopes that you don't get this terrible revelation in the morning that a stray cruise missiles hit a hospital or a school or something like that.
Right.
If they've taken out the military airfield where the planes took off to launch the horrendous chemical warfare attack on that town where 70 little children, 70 people have died, amongst them little children, Khan Sheikhoum, then you've got to say it's a good thing.
Sure. We'll bring you more developments on this as it happens. We are the Two Mics. This is TalkSport.
Baby, you and I are not the same. You say you like the sun, I
Sport, we are the two mites. Coming up in a little while, it's going to be the Porky Quiz on the Grand National. We'll keep you updated, of course, with any news that breaks from Syria, or indeed from Washington, D.C., or indeed Mar-a-Lago in Palm Beach in Florida.
Indeed.
Which is where Donald Trump currently is. And, of course, if there's any reaction from the British government here in Downing Street, that may be some hours away. What I do want to do now, then, Porky, is to bring you a couple of messages because our good friends Julia and Ian, two people from Coventry, who live in Coventry, have been to many of our
citizens.
Have been to many of our live shows, and with whom we've spent many a happy hour drinking. Are celebrating their wedding anniversary today, right?
Really?
And I was contacted by Julia yesterday.
Is this today, Friday, April 17th?
Today, Friday, April the 7th.
The 7th, I mean,
Not the 17th,
No, 7th, yeah.
And this is what Julia wanted me to read out on her behalf.
Okay.
Happy anniversary to Ian, 7th of April, 20 years ago, together, 7 years married. You're my everything and a wonderful dad to Lennon and Lola. One of their kids called Lennon, of course. Look forward to many more years to come and some more Two Mikes nights. Love you so much, almost as much as I love pork chop, meaning you.
Really?
That's
so kind.
They are such a wonderful couple, though. So I mean, I have to say that I wish you a very, very happy anniversary, and hopefully we'll see you soon at some live show that we'll do, because they're bound to come to a live show. It might be the New York one. It might be the one we do in London. We're not quite sure on either of those fronts yet where that's going to play out over the course of the next few weeks and months. But we hope to be doing at least one or two shows before the end of the year, right?
We certainly will. And Julia, I want to say thank you very much indeed. I am not worthy of you, my dear, so pork chop is just a figment of your imagination, whereas you've got a real husband next to you for 20 years, which is a great thing. You're a wonderful couple. We'll see you again soon.
Yes, absolutely right. Now, we've got lots and lots of tweets and things coming in. I'm going to have to go through some of them before I start reading them out, because as per normal, I read them out pretty much as they come in. But there's a lot of sort of conspiracy theorist nutters out there.
Exactly.
And I don't want to start reading some of these out without vetting them first, because I don't want people to get worried about what's going on in the world.
I want to tell you a story which is going to worry you greatly.
Yeah, go on.
A bloke who runs Laura Ashley, right?
Yeah.
Yesterday,
Didn't Laura Ashley go out of business? I thought they went out of business.
I don't know which what state the company's in at the moment, but this gentleman has been described in court as a Laura Ashley boss. Okay.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
He's broken up with his wife. The marriage is ended. The divorce is going through, and he has been told to pay his wife £64 million.
Million?
64 million.
Blimey.
The guy's name is Ku K Peng. He's obviously of Eastern origin.
If they weren't out of business before, they certainly will be now.
The animosity between the warring couple is so great that the judge once begged them to declare an armistice on learning they had racked up more than £6 million in lawyers' fees, getting to the stage where they are now, okay?
The lawyers always win, don't they?
Lawyers always win. They had a 42-year-long marriage. And you wonder how anybody who stayed together for 42 years can end in such bitter acrimony.
Well, it's a funny thing, isn't it? I mean, no matter how well you think you know somebody, suddenly when things start to go a little bit wrong, they can get really wrong. And I've said this before to you, that once the lawyers get involved as well, I mean, even if you wanted to have an amicable kind of split, it makes it almost impossible because the lawyers are all picking at each other constantly, you know.
I totally agree. The lady involved, right, her name is Ms. Chai. For Pauline Chai. She's age 70. They've been married for 2 years. And yet I've seen pictures of her earlier today coming out of the court. And she looks about 40.
Right.
I'm not joking. To say that she was a former
do you think she might have had some help without wishing to be unkind?
Well, I've no idea, and I don't want to speculate on that. But the figures are so astronomical. When the marriage went south and all that, she demanded a settlement, and she wanted £100 million because she says her husband's worth £205 million.
Well, I suppose she would say, and quite legitimately, if she's been with him as long as she has.
Well, all his working life, really.
That she, as is often the way with these stories, she would have helped him contribute to building up his income level.
However, he made an offer which I think most women in the world would have accepted. He said, "You're not getting a penny more than £9 million." But she
But you see,
she said, forget that.
But if she's been living this life for this many years, and they've been used to flying around in private jets, and having massive homes. I mean, $9 million. I'm sorry to say and sound like I'm not a man of the people here. But it wouldn't go very far. I mean, $9 million would not buy her the sort of house that she would be used to having, say, for example, in London. Would it?
No. Oh no. I mean, £9 million would just about pay for the house. But the costs of running that house then are so enormous. But anyway, to answer your question on his business status, Dr. Koo, a non-executive chairman of Laura Ashley Ashley Holdings. He actually lives in Malaysia and wanted the case heard in Malaysia. It was his wife who brought it to London, but he was determined he'd get a better deal because he feared UK judges would award her a more generous settlement.
Yes. Well, that's one of the things that people have said about London. It's becoming not only the libel capital of the world, where people like to come and sue for libel, but it's becoming the divorce capital of the world because people get such generous settlements.
That's right.
Because I mean, what I can tell you about what I know about Laura Ashley was I was under the impression that they were running out of a big sort of plant somewhere down in South Wales for some reason. Yeah. And I think they went into some kind of bankruptcy. And maybe he then, administration or something, and maybe he bought them out.
Oh, yeah,
I may have to check that.
Could be. Anyway, apparently she will now still feel hard done because although she's got the settlement of 64 million, she doesn't accept that her husband's only worth 205 million. She says he's worth 440 million. So she feels that she's been really shortchanged.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely.
Terrible.
How the other half live, eh? But anyway, it's a warning to yourself, isn't it, to get your relationships right in life, because if not, you could very well find yourself bankrupted as well.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I'm finding things about such as the Laura Ashley Australia has been voluntarily put into administration.
Right, yeah.
So, there's definitely been some problems in the past of Laura Ashley in various parts of the world. So maybe this guy's bought it relatively recently.
Yeah.
But I guess, does it say anything about him having a new paramour by any chance?
Nothing at all.
So they've literally just
after
broken
42
up.
years, they've just
literally. Yeah, you got me saying it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, they've just parted, which I think is very sad as well, really, because two people who've been together for so long, gone through so much. You know, he's accumulated that wealth through his business acumen and skill.
Yeah.
You always like these great stories where people start by living above a fish and chip shop in 2 rooms, don't you?
Yeah.
And end up living in a £25 million
well,
mansion
exactly.
in the Boltons or something like that.
Because some people have just got that kind of wealth. You were talking the other day about that tragic story from the people in the helicopter going from Luton over to Dublin.
Unbelievable.
But, these are the people who have made an absolute fortune and are living the lives of millionaires.
Yes, they are,
flying around in helicopters, private jets. There's a lot of people doing that, more than you would think.
Yeah, well, that's what a free society is all about.
Well, it is.
Yeah. Now, the reason we played, Ollie very kindly played the opener to Stairway to Heaven.
Stairway to Heaven earlier on,
a few minutes earlier.
Yeah.
Was because apparently all these new groups that are around today, and I must say that they've left me behind.
Well, only yesterday you were telling me about how much you liked One Direction.
Well, I wasn't telling you how much I liked them. I admired them for making so much money in such a short space of time.
Yes.
They've all got about 50 million quid each, and they're in their mid-20s, you know?
Yeah.
They're richer by comparison than the Beatles were when the Beatles were that age, you know, and all that kind of stuff. But the point is that modern youngsters just would not sit there and listen to that sort of opener to Stairway to Heaven without getting up and walking out of a concert or immediately ditching whatever download they just suddenly uploaded and get rid of it and get something else.
I suppose it depends on the kind of music you're talking about, because funnily enough, I've got some stuff that I still listen to on Spotify, and songs like from, say, a band like Led Zeppelin or Yes or something like that.
Sure.
And they're 12 minutes long, some of the songs.
Yeah.
And you think, my goodness me. And actually, I find myself not really always wanting to listen to the song if it's that long now. Well, whereas when I was a teenager, I did,
It's apparently the opener, and the worst ones are, for instance, funnily enough, I mentioned this to Steve when he came on the other night. Steve of U2 fame.
Steve Lillywhite.
Steve Lillywhite. Where the Streets Have No Name has got one of the longest opening sort of intros in the history of music. It's 1 minute and 17 seconds long, and no youngster could possibly ever listen to that.
Right.
This is it. It's beautiful, by the way, I think,
It's one of those great songs as well that you can imagine when you see them live.
Yes.
Because it builds up and builds up and builds up to them coming onto the stage.
That's
it's a fantastic song.
And then the old Edge gets going on the old guitar there,
does.
you know. And,
he does.
Phil Collins in the Air Tonight, 53 seconds. Deep Purple's Smoke on the Water, 51 seconds. Paul McCartney and Wings, Band on the Run, 38 seconds, and they just don't listen to these things anymore.
Yeah.
So if you want to, if we want to get together and produce the 2 mics and make them the 4 mics, our protege band,
Are you sure you've got enough time for that?
Yeah,
It's your busy schedule. There's so much going on at the moment.
We can make sure that when we write them a few songs, because we are wordsmiths, we're good with words, we'll find some guy to knock out a few melodies and tunes or something.
Yes.
We've got to keep the record short and to the point. Okay.
Well, why don't we just follow the formula of Lennon and McCartney, who went straight in before they started to get carried away with the albums.
Exactly.
Their songs just went straight in on the chorus.
Well, for instance, you're absolutely right. Think of the theme music to Ask Porky. It's Help, isn't it?
Yeah.
And the very first word
is Help. That's it.
Exactly.
They go right in.
Yeah.
Straight at you.
That's right.
Right. We've managed not to get through another show without playing the Beatles.
Exactly.
Heaven's sake. Now, coming up, we will be doing the Porky quiz. Have no fear, it's next. I'll tell you that, here are the questions from the independent quizmasters.
Oh, that's the first set, is
in
it?
an envelope. You see, once again, you say this in order to try and put a thought in people's minds that there's more than one set
The
of
second
questions.
set under the
You've never, ever...
under the table.
If you'd like to...
When I start getting them right early on, you watch what happens, Watch what happens.
If you'd like to come and check whether there's another set of questions here, you're more than welcome.
No. I'm not going to
so.
stoop to that level.
No, because you don't want me checking what you've got in front of you, do you?
There's nothing in front of me.
You've got an awful lot of papers.
You know, send your spies in, do whatever you want.
I don't have any spies.
Mine's pure brain power, okay?
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to tell everybody that the Porky Quiz is live on Facebook as we speak.
Yes.
And I shall be sending a link out on Twitter as soon as I can do that.
Yes.
Well, first I'm going to open the questions up.
Yes.
As you can see, only one section of Quizmaster's envelopes is in front of me. Yeah. I've got here... Oh, here we go. There it is.
Look, just one piece of paper in that envelope.
One piece of paper.
Yeah.
If you'd like to see if there's anything else in there, there's nothing else.
No,
Nothing else in there. Right. There we go. Right. If you get one correct...
Just interested where the other envelope is, that's all.
There is no other envelope.
Right, anyway, go on, yeah.
You see, this is what you do. You obfuscate
Come on.
and confuse people. Right. If you get a question correct, you will hear this sound.
Crowd going ballistic.
If you get one incorrect, you will hear this sound.
Oh, right, okay. Won't be many of those.
That's very good, yeah. Now, you've said previously you're an expert in the Grand National, so are you ready for question number one?
Yes, I am.
The first race was held in 1839
Yeah.
amidst confusion over weighing procedures. Who won it?
1839.
1839, the first Grand National.
Yeah.
I'm looking for the name of the horse, obviously.
Now, there were three races... There were three races before 1839, in 1836, 7 and 8. And I'm just thinking aloud here because they were won by the Duke in the first 2 years and then Sir William. And then,
The Duke?
Yeah, when they entered the formal race in 1839, which was the first one which is known as the modern-day Grand National, the horse that won that one was...
Why are you looking down?
Because I'm thinking.
Oh, really?
Was...
If you get it right, I think we might have to have a steward's inquiry.
I believe it was... I think the Duke and Sir William came... It was Sir William!
Incorrect.
No!
It was, in fact, called Lottery.
Lottery?
Yeah. You were going to say that, weren't you? But you thought I'd rumble your cheating.
No.
5-1. Question number two.
Yeah.
What is the fastest winning time recorded at the race?
Fastest winning time?
Years.
The fastest winning time recorded at the race?
Yes.
You just want the time. You don't want the horse or
I don't.
or the jockey.
I mean, the horse you can tell me, but I'm more interested in the time.
The fastest winning time is precisely...
Yes.
I'm just thinking aloud here now. Fastest winning time. Do you know that the horse that actually recorded the fastest winning time was the one that finished the race that was scrapped because of the confusion at the start?
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
but I'm not
that's right.
interested in that.
Yeah.
You haven't got time for this kind of...
and this is thing aloud. So that leaves
this kind
the
of
fastest winning
deviation.
time
Yeah.
to be... now, I need, obviously, 10% either way on this, because it's a very precise number.
It's a very precise number.
Right.
I will give you some leeway.
Right.
I'll tell you what I'll give you.
Yes.
I'll give you 10 seconds either way.
Right, okay.
How about that?
It was 9 minutes and 11 seconds.
Incorrect.
No!
It was 8 minutes and 47.8 seconds.
No, it wasn't.
Yes, it was.
It wasn't. It was never that
It was
fast.
8 minutes and 47.8 seconds. Do you know when?
When?
1990. Do you know who? The name of the horse?
I don't believe this.
Mr. Frisk. That's the name of the horse.
I think that's rubbish.
Well, you may think it's rubbish.
I think that's absolute rubbish.
Okay. Question number 3.
Yeah.
Who is Beecher's Brook named after?
Beecher.
You'll have to be a bit more specific, I'm
Right.
afraid.
Beecher's Brook is named after...
Good choice, though. Good guess.
Yeah. Thinking aloud here. Yes, I know it's named after.
Yeah, go on.
It's named after William Beecher. And William Beecher was one of the original proponents of the race, going right back to when the land was acquired at Aintree, which was then known as a district of Waterloo, in around about 1836. But it was definitely it was Captain William Beecher.
Incorrect.
No!
It was Captain Martin Beecher.
No, it wasn't.
Yes, it was.
No.
Who, in fact, was a jockey who took shelter in the brook after being unseated. So you got that one wrong.
He said, by the way, when he was in the brook,
Yeah.
he said, the taste of water without whiskey is vile.
That's right.
Yes.
Absolutely right.
Yes.
Shame you got his name wrong. Question number 4.
Yeah.
What is the oldest winning horse?
The oldest winning horse?
Yeah.
The oldest winning horse
I'll have to hurry you here as well because we're really running out of time.
was Red Rum in its third incantation, i.e. when it won its third race, and
At
it's
what
12
age?
years of age.
Incorrect.
No, it's not incorrect.
It is.
It's not.
The oldest horse was
No.
Peter Simple, who was
Yeah.
15.
No.
Yeah, he was, in 1853.
Well, 1853's rubbish.
What do you mean it's
That's
rubbish?
not the modern Grand National. This is a stitch-up
It's
again.
the Grand National.
It's not the Grand National.
That's what it was called.
How many of our millions of listeners can remember anything about the 1853 Grand National? Why didn't you ask questions about races that our millions of listeners have seen, you oaf?
Okay, well, I was just asking the questions that are written down.
Honestly.
Question number 5.
Yeah.
Which horse has run in more races than any other?
Which horse is running more races than any other?
Yes.
See, Red Rum won 3
Is that the only one you know?
and came second
So when
twice.
you keep, Red Rum's the answer to everyone.
Well, I
It's
know
like-
you ran at least 5,
like
don't I? But you're going
Exile on Main Street.
You're probably going to go on about some obscure horse that never won the blinking race. So, nobody will ever heard of it.
The question is not about
Ridiculous question.
how many victories, it's how many times it ran.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to say Red Rum.
Incorrect.
No. So, which mysterious animal was it?
It was Manifesto, which ran in 8 races between 1895 and 1904. It won twice. Came third
1895 and
3 times.
1904.
Well, it won twice.
What a
It was-
load of rubbish.
Well, why didn't you look at any facts at all about the Grand
Can't you
National?
make this contemporary so that people can actually join in the quiz
It's
and
nothing
say,
to do
yeah,
with me."
I remember seeing that. Oh, I remember this
Well,
one.
there's some contemporary questions coming up.
Well, blimey, I mean, it's not about the history of the Grand National. It's about the Grand National, which is being
Well, I don't-
raced tomorrow in
Well,
Aintree.
these are all questions about the Grand
Ludicrous
National.
question.
Question
Ludicrous.
number 6.
Yeah.
5 winners were bred in France.
Yeah.
Can you name 2 of them? Now, that's an easy question because you've got 2 out of 5 possibilities you can get.
5
And
winners
2 of the
bred in
horses that are in this list of 5,
Yeah.
I'll help you out here,
Yeah.
are very much in the modern era.
Very much of the modern
So you can't
era.
complain about that.
Bred in France or born in France?
Bred in France.
Bred in France. Right, one of them was probably Amberley House. Thinking aloud. The other one would have been L'Escargot.
Incorrect on
No,
both counts.
no, L'Escargot must be French.
You could have had Mon Môme, 2009.
Yeah.
You could have had Neptune Colonges, 2012, which were the 2 I thought you would have got. You wouldn't have probably known Rugny, 1874, Le Tour the Third, 1909, and Alcibiade,
Unbelievable.
1865.
Unbelievable.
So far, you haven't got any right.
Over 100 years ago. Well,
All
the
right.
questions are so ridiculous.
Well, they're not. The question number 7. Who's the most successful national jockey? Meaning, which one has won the most races?
Well, no jockeys have won it more than twice.
You sure?
In the modern Grand National,
I don't
of course not.
I don't know
No.
I don't know what you mean about the mod. I mean,
Ruby-
the last time we did a quiz about
Yeah.
the Merseyside Derby,
Mm.
you stipulated that you didn't want anything before 1958.
Yeah, but
And in this case, you did not stipulate.
you're going back to 1858,
Yeah, but you
which
didn't
is
stipulate
ludicrous.
any rules about what years you wanted to be asked about.
The most successful
You
jockeys
just said you're an expert on the Grand National.
of the modern era are Ruby Walsh, who's won it twice.
It's not the modern era. It's the Grand National.
The guy who won it in 2 successive nationals last year and the year before, old Rashley, and Dunwoody won it twice. So it's either of those 3.
It's not. Incorrect. It's George Stevens, who actually won it 5 times.
When?
In the 19th century.
What the years?
The last one he won was 1870.
How ridiculous, honestly.
Question number 8. Now, this one you should know.
Right.
Katie Walsh is the highest placed female jockey.
Yeah.
Finishing 3rd in 2012.
Yes.
What was the name of her horse on that occasion?
Katie Walsh, 2012. So that's, what do we know? 17, 16, 15, 14, 13, 12. 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So this woman finished 3rd on a horse
Yeah.
5 years
Well,
ago.
she's not just any woman. She's Katie Walsh. She's Ruby Walsh's sister.
Katie Walsh. And I'm supposed to know the name of the horse.
Well, it's the modern era.
Yeah, but it's the horse that finished 3rd.
She's a female jockey. It was a big story at the time. She came
No.
3rd in the Grand National.
Nobody ever remembers who comes 2nd,
Really?
let alone 3rd.
Okay. Well, you don't know then.
I would say it would have to be something related to the Walsh family, so I will say it was called Flower of Ireland.
No. Sea bass. You must remember Seabass. Even I remember that. How about this one, then?
Yeah.
What was the name of last year's winner?
Last year's winner.
You're not going to complain about this question, are you? This is about last year's winner of the Grand National.
Last year's winner of the Grand National was...
Why are you looking down again?
Because I'm thinking...
Yeah.
Was... It reminded me of a James Bond title, Quantum of Force. I'm thinking aloud here.
Quantum of Force?
Quantum of Force. Quantum of Soleil or something like that. It was... it definitely had a Q in it. A Q, yeah.
Okay.
Q.
I can't comment on that, obviously. I can't help you. Can't give you any clues.
I'm going to have to say...
Cues or otherwise.
Quantum bearing.
Incorrect. It's ruled the world. How can you do a quiz on the Grand National and not know what it was the winner last year? Rule the world.
Rule the world.
Didn't you have money on it?
No.
I thought you won money last year.
No, I didn't. No, not on the winner.
All right.
My horse came second.
Finally, see if you get 1 out of 10. What is the distance of the course in kilometres?
It's not given in kilometres. On the race card, which I've seen, it's given in miles and yards.
Well, I'll tell you what. Since you've only got no points at all...
Because of the stupidity of the questions.
I will allow you to answer it in miles, but you have to be absolutely right.
It's 4 miles, 514 yards.
That is correct.
Thank you.
So you've got 1 out of 10. Well, do you want to have a guess at how many kilometres that is?
No, I don't,
Why
because
not?
it's not given in kilometres. On the
Right.
race card, it's given in miles and yards.
Well,
So why would you want to ask it in kilometres?
Well, because if you're French, for example...
I couldn't care less about the French.
Well,
this is an English race.
and
in England, we measure it in miles and yards.
Five horses from France have won it.
You see, that's a proper fact about the Grand National. And I knew loads of other proper facts about the Grand National.
Well, like what?
Devon Lock, 1956.
What?
Why
Devon
didn't you ask
Lock
me about that?
Devon Lock what?
Foyne-Avon, 1973.
What
Why
was
didn't
that?
you ask me about that?
Well, what about it?
Because it won 100 to 1 because all the other horses were rammed up, 23 of them, at the 23rd fence.
Uh-huh.
Devon Lock was the horse that was going to sprint for the finish when it suddenly dived on its belly, owned by the Queen Mother.
Okay.
Why didn't you ask me about that?
What was the name of last year's winner? That's quite a good one. You should have got that one.
We've already done that.
No, but why didn't you get that one right?
I didn't get that right because that is too...
You thought it had a Q in it.
No.
Why didn't you know the name of Katie Walsh's horse, which was a very famous
Because
horse?
nobody does.
Yeah, because
nobody does.
Well, people remember the name of the horse in which the female jockey does very well.
Why didn't you ask me about Alden Eaty and Bob Champion, the greatest story ever in the National? The man who had testicular cancer was going to die, who won the race.
Do you know what
Why
the
didn't
name
you ask me about any of that?
Oh, because I don't write the questions.
No, you have an influence
No,
with the
I
quizmasters. They were so ridiculous,
No,
the first
I don't think
6
so.
questions.
Well, let me ask you another. I'll give you an opportunity to get a bonus question, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
What's the name of Katie Walsh's horse this year?
I have no idea. Because it is totally irrelevant.
Why is it irrelevant?
Because the race hasn't even been run yet, and we were having a quiz about the Grand National.
Incorrect.
Not tomorrow's Grand National.
Incorrect. She's
the
not
history
gonna
of the Grand National.
She fell off her horse yesterday and broke her arm. You're
Yeah.
doing a quiz on the Grand National. You didn't even know that.
No.
It's a shocking state of affairs.
Shocking
1 out of
questions,
10.
worse than ever. But it reached a new low in the
I have not.
paucity of the questions.
Rubbish.
Our millions of listeners will agree with me.
No, they won't.
I know so much about the Grand National which you could have asked me about, which you
You
deliberately
didn't even know the name of last year's winner.
I knew the name of historically of all the famous races. I mean, why didn't you ask me? What instead of going on about old Martin Beecher, why didn't you ask me what number fence it is? It's number 6, right?
But you didn't get
The
his name
Foyne-Avon
right.
fence, number 7.
You didn't know what
The
guy...
Canal Turn, number 8.
Yeah,
Why
but-
didn't you ask me about any of those?
I didn't write the questions.
Yes, you did.
Anyway, never mind. That was 1 out of 10.
Disgrace.
He would have only got 0 out of 10 if it hadn't been for my absolute generosity.
Rubbish.
That was the
I
Porky
gave you
quiz.
exactly the right answer
Stop
to the 10th
whining.
question.
This is Talk Sport.
The intention that you have booked was an intention that was overlooked.
There's a lot of very funny comments on Facebook, I have to say, which people were putting on as they were watching it.
Yes.
Here's one from Peter, who says, literally thicker than the average bear, which is a bit harsh, really.
Is he talking about you or me?
No, I think you.
Oh, really?
Johnny says, Porky's going mad. Red rum, red rum, red rum.
Yeah,
It's like
okay.
that scene from The Shining.
Yeah, okay. Well, let me tell you this. Tracy, for instance,
Yeah.
a highly intelligent young lady,
Ah.
I feel for Porky on the Porky quiz. He's been nobbled with the insane questions, okay?
How are they insane?
And William says, what dreadful questions, Porky. All questions practically in the 1880s a definite false start, a stitch-up. This is the general theme of the way our millions of listeners are reacting.
Well, let me read you a couple of others. James says this: the biggest joke is that this guy calls the subject himself and has time to revise.
Yeah.
Hashtag plank. We decided, I think it was on Monday, that it was going to be about the Grand
National. Yes, but then your obtuse questions, which...
They're not my questions.
You know, you have two sets of questions, and the minute you think you've got me on the obtuse ones, you stick with the obtuse list.
I've only got one list of questions.
Dave the Milk says, worst quiz ever, 6 or 7 questions with answers in the 1800s. What on earth is the point of it, MG?
5 of the questions...
And he's absolutely right.
5 of the questions were what you would call the modern era, and were about the course. Beecher's Brook was about the course. You didn't know who it was named after.
I certainly did.
No, you didn't. You got the guy's name wrong.
Yeah, but he was from 1839.
Well, it doesn't matter. Beecher's Brook is a very famous... It's a very famous jump.
Hear what Gareth says.
You didn't know what... I let you have the length of the course in miles, which you got.
Which I got to the exact yard.
Yeah, but the question was in kilometres.
And you tried to nobble it by putting in kilometres.
No, I let you off. I said do it in miles if you want.
OK, so when have you ever been to a race meeting in this country lately where on your race card the length of the race is given in kilometres?
I'm not usually paying that much attention to the race cards.
Well, I'm telling you, it does not happen, OK? So you deliberately tried to nobble that.
Nicholas says,
good job that I was as smart than the average bear in spotting that one.
Well, I mean, it is probably listed in kilometres as well, because we do live now in a metric society.
Definitely not. We do not.
Yes, we do.
Gareth says, I'm not normally on Mike Parry's side, but I agree with his argument. Far too many questions about races in the 18th and 19th century.
Really?
Not enjoyable. See? You ruin it for our millions of listeners.
A couple of people are saying Freunhaven was actually 1967, not 1973. You're plank. Another fact you didn't actually know.
I knew all about 1967 and Freunhaven. 73 was the race that never was. Jenny Pittman was the trainer of the horse that they thought had won, but the race was called off because of the
there are some planks out there. Stephen says this. Porky stitched up again by MG. How did MG know there were contemporary questions coming up if you hadn't seen the questions before?
Exactly.
Because I was looking at the 10 questions, you complete numpty, Stephen. I had the list of 10 questions in front of me.
No, people
so
have
I could
rumbled
see what questions 1 to 10 actually were.
Yeah, Baz says, Porky quiz, an absolute disaster. Planksville knowledge. And he's talking about you, not me.
How about this from David? Absolutely shocking performance. If Porky was a horse running in the National, the form would read, don't bother with this nag.
Yeah.
In fact, he'd probably be taken off to the glue factory.
Unfortunately, we've got some very observant listeners. Andy T says, to be fair, the questions are not relevant, and Porky was clearly rattled about the geopolitical events that had been happening minutes earlier, to which he had to turn his attention to.
Well, I don't think
you see?
So,
my multi-skilling, my multitasking was another reason why that was such a shocking set of questions.
I would have thought that you'd be able to handle that as well as doing the quiz. James says, shocking performance from Porky in the Porky quiz, up there with the very worst showings by Porky. It really is.
Who's this guy, Phil? He needs to push off. He says, Porky, it's about the Grand National since it first started up until now. Stop moaning and man up.
No,
is that right, Phil?
I think there is some
back
truth
on
to
your
that.
surfboard.
You're back on your surfboard?
Yeah,
what does that mean?
Some sort of a picture of him standing on a beach or something.
Oh, right, okay.
Some kind of, beach bum or something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, here's one from Matthew, who's in Rossendale, and he said, hi, Mike, it's my birthday today. Would love a message from you two. It's been a tough year, but you guys have been good friends.
Yes, have we?
How about that?
What's the name of this chap's name?
His name's Matt in Rossendale.
And he says it's his birthday.
It's his birthday today.
Matt in Rossendale.
Yeah.
Great place, Rossendale, by
Is
the
it?
way. Yeah. Have a great day, pal. Remember, celebrating your birthday on a Friday is great because you've got the rest of the weekend to look forward to.
Yeah, indeed. I've got one other as well from Alan who says, can I get a mention on the podcast? I'm 30 today.
30?
Yeah.
What's his name?
His name is Alan.
Alan, happy 30th birthday, pal. And as I say, you'll have a great night tonight, Friday, and then you can pick up at lunchtime tomorrow, Saturday.
Yeah.
Go through Saturday, pick up at lunchtime Sunday. Have a great weekend.
And he said he's had a few iffy years as well, but we've never failed to make him laugh or smile.
Yes.
We are serious broadcasters, though, of course.
Oh, of course we are.
Yeah,
now, Nico...
we're just here to make you laugh.
Nico, of course, has lost the plot completely. He says, poor old Porky, you got to feel for him, although 1 out of 10 is pretty terrible. More research next time, maybe. I tell you what, Nico, you dumb cough, if I'd have researched for a week, I would still have got the most obtuse questions in the world, making it impossible for me to display my knowledge of a subject ever. And frankly,
do you know
I'm
what?
getting pretty damn fed up with it, OK?
Well, do you know what we can do next week if you want? We can revert back to the Trivial Pursuit questions, if you prefer, and then cut the old independent quizmasters out of the picture.
I think next week we will.
OK.
We're going to do that next week,
All right.
OK?
Well, we can do that.
So at least I get onto a level playing field.
Yes, that's fine.
Mick here makes the preposterous... point, he thinks. The race that never was in 93, not 73, Porky.
Yeah.
It's exactly what I said, you oafish individual. I'm not having people pick me up on things I did not say.
I don't think you should start giving people such a hard time. Anyway, it's been a delightful week of shows, I have to say. We were serious for a little while there. We'll bring you more, I'm sure, TalkSport throughout the course of the day and on Talk Radio as well on that American-US strike on Syria.
Yep.
We'll be back, of course, for the warm-up
will.
at 11 o'clock tomorrow. It is
We
11
will.
o'clock, I assume, isn't it? I haven't been told otherwise.
It's 11.
And there's going to be lots and lots of action, of course. This is Grand National. There is the Masters. It's all happening. This is TalkSport.
Bungana. Bungana. Bungana.